Billionaire humiliated the elderly flower lady. Hours later, he found out she was his future mother-in-law. Hello, viewer. Thanks for joining us. Leave a like and share your thoughts in the comments, along with the city you're watching from. Now let's continue with the story. Brandon Mitchell doesn't have time for the poor, cheap flowers or sentimental old ladies until he discovers that the woman he despised on the corner of Fifth Avenue is the mother of the woman he loves. The morning sun streams through floor-to-ceiling windows, casting sharp geometric shadows across Brandon Mitchell's corner office on the 43rd floor. He stands with his back to the mahogany conference table, hands clasped behind him, surveying his kingdom. Central Park sprawls green and gold below. Manhattan rises in steel and glass around him, and somewhere in that concrete jungle, his empire grows by the minute. Mr. Mitchell, the Singapore investors are ready. Marcus Chen, his CFO, announces from the doorway. Brandon turns, straightening his Armani tie. At 35, he's mastered the art of looking composed, even when adrenaline surges through his veins. This deal matters. $50 million, 3 new properties, expansion into the Asian market. His father's little hardware store in Brooklyn never saw numbers like these. "Send them in," he says, his voice carrying that particular blend of confidence and detachment that made him one of the youngest Fortune 500 CEOs in New York. The meeting unfolds like a chess game Brandon has played 100 times. He presents projections, parries concerns, closes gaps before they widen. By 11:30, contracts are signed, hands are shaken, and Mitchell & Co. is $50 million richer. Marcus lingers as the investors file out, closing the door behind them. "You look nervous, boss," Marcus observes, studying Brandon's face. "I'm not nervous. It's just a dinner." Brandon adjusts his tie again, a tell he doesn't realize he has. With her mother, that's serious. "I know. Grace is different. Special." "Different how?" Brandon crosses to the window, watching the city pulse below. "She doesn't care about money, barely believes I am who I am. When she looks at me, she sees, I don't know, something real." "And the mother?" "No idea. Grace never talks much about family. Says they're simple. Probably middle class, teachers, you know." Marcus raises an eyebrow but says nothing. Brandon has worked with him for 10 years, long enough to know that silence means disagreement. "What?" Brandon challenges. "Nothing. Just, you seem to know a lot about Singapore investors and very little about your girlfriend's family." "I'm about to fix that tonight. 7 p.m. I'm meeting her mother, I'll charm her, and then—" Brandon pauses, reaches into his pocket, pulls out a small velvet box. Marcus's eyes widen. "Is that what I think it is?" "Maybe. If tonight goes well. If her mother likes me. If everything feels right." Brandon Mitchell, nervous about meeting parents. "I never thought I'd see the day." "I'm not nervous," Brandon insists, shoving the box back into his pocket. "I'm prepared." "There's a difference." Marcus grins but doesn't push. "Good luck, boss. You'll need it." Across the city in Queens, Grace Dawson stands in front of 23 third graders, trying to focus on the multiplication lesson on the board. But her mind keeps drifting to her phone, to the text message that arrived during recess. 7 p.m. Can't wait to meet your mother. Love you. Her heart did that familiar flutter when she saw Brandon's name, followed immediately by that familiar knot of anxiety. She hasn't told him everything. Hasn't told him that works with flowers means selling them on a street corner. Hasn't told him that their apartment in Queens is smaller than his walk-in closet. Hasn't told him that her mother, Eleanor, has arthritis so bad she can barely open her hands by the end of each day, but still goes to work because pride matters more than pain. "Miss Dawson," a small voice pulls her back to the classroom. "Yes, Tommy." "Is 7 times 8 54 or 56? Grace blinks, refocuses. Let's work it out together. By noon, when the lunch bell rings and her students stampede toward the cafeteria, Grace is exhausted. She hasn't slept well in days. The medical bills are piling up, the rent is late, and tonight, Brandon Mitchell, with his penthouse and his perfect suits and his billion-dollar company, is going to walk into her world and see everything she's been carefully hiding. Sophia Martinez appears in the doorway of the teacher's lounge, carrying 2 sad-looking salads from the corner deli. "You look like death," Sophia announces, setting 1 salad in front of Grace. "Thanks. You really know how to make a girl feel special." "I'm serious. What's wrong?" Grace picks at the wilted lettuce. "Brandon's meeting my mom tonight." "Oh." Sophia sits down, opens her own salad. "Did you tell him?" "I told him she works with flowers." "Grace." I know, but he has these ideas. He thinks poor people are lazy. He talks about bootstraps and ambition, like everyone who isn't rich just isn't trying hard enough. And you think he'll change his mind when he discovers your mum sells flowers on the street. He'll understand. He loves me. Sophia reaches across the table, squeezes Grace's hand. "I hope so, girl, because this Prince Charming of yours sounds more like an ogre in a suit. He's not that bad. He had a hard childhood. His dad died when he was young. He built everything from nothing. He's proud of that. And he should be, but pride shouldn't mean looking down on people who are still fighting." Grace knows Sophia is right. She's known for months. But love makes you hopeful. Makes you believe that people can change, that the man who holds her like she's precious might also learn to see the world through gentler eyes. "I have to try," Grace whispers. "I love him." Sophia nods, understanding but not quite believing. "Just protect your heart, okay? And your mum's." At 3 o'clock, Brandon strides out of his midtown office building, checking his phone. He has 4 hours until dinner, enough time to stop by the jeweler in the Diamond District, review the quarterly reports Marcus sent, and maybe pick up flowers for Eleanor. First impressions matter. The October afternoon is crisp, the kind of New York day that makes you glad to be alive and rich enough to enjoy it. Brandon walks with purpose, dodging slower pedestrians, his Italian leather shoes clicking against the pavement. He's 2 blocks from the jeweler when he sees her. An old woman, maybe 60-something, standing behind a makeshift flower cart on the corner of 5th Avenue and 49th Street. Her cart is simple, almost shabby, buckets of roses, daisies, and lilies arranged with care, but lacking any real aesthetic. She wears a faded blue cardigan despite the sun, and her hands, when she reaches to adjust a bouquet, move stiff and slow. Brandon doesn't slow down, doesn't plan to, until she speaks. "Flowers, sir? Fresh roses today, perfect for someone special." He barely glances up from his phone. "No, thank you. They're only $10. Brighten anyone's day." Something in her persistence irritates him. He's in a good mood, closed a massive deal, has dinner with his girlfriend's mother tonight. He doesn't need some street vendor guilt-tripping him into buying wilted flowers. "I said no," he responds, his voice colder now. But she smiles, that hopeful, almost desperate smile he's seen 1,000 times on people who want something from him. "Please, sir, just 1 bouquet. They're beautiful." Brandon stops, looks at her, really looks. Takes in the worn clothes, the roughened hands, the cart that probably violates a dozen city ordinances, and something inside him snaps. "Frankly, you should find a real job instead of begging on the street." The words hang in the air, sharp and cruel. The woman's smile vanishes. Nearby, an older man at a newspaper stand stops arranging his papers, turns to stare. "Begging?" Eleanor's voice comes out small, shocked. "Sir, I work. I've worked for 35 years. Selling flowers on a sidewalk isn't work, it's desperation. Brandon slides his phone into his pocket, his irritation building into something uglier. People like you are the problem with this city. No ambition, no education, just waiting for handouts. Brandon Mitchell, the newspaper vendor interrupts. That wasn't necessary. Brandon frowns. You know me. Not personally. But I know your type. Brandon ignores him, looks back at Eleanor. In his mind, he's being honest, direct. Someone needs to tell these people the truth. His father wasted his life running a failing hardware store, died broken. Brandon swore he'd never be like that, never accept mediocrity. Here's some advice, he continues, his voice carrying that boardroom certainty. If you want respect, earn it. Stop selling cheap flowers and get a real job. He walks away, already forgetting the encounter, his mind shifting back to the jeweler, to tonight's dinner, to Grace's smile. Behind him, Eleanor stands frozen, flowers clutched in trembling hands. The newspaper vendor, Mr. Thompson, comes around his stand, places a gentle hand on her shoulder. Eleanor, don't listen to that jerk. Eleanor's voice breaks. He doesn't know. He doesn't know who I am. Who are you to him? Eleanor looks up, tears gathering in her eyes. I'm the mother of his girlfriend. He's coming to dinner tonight. Mr. Thompson's jaw drops. You're kidding. I wish I was. Eleanor sets the flowers down, her hands shaking more from emotion now than arthritis. That's Brandon Mitchell. And in 4 hours, he's going to walk into my daughter's apartment and discover exactly who he just humiliated. At 6 o'clock, Eleanor arrives at the small apartment she shares with Grace in Queens. The subway ride gave her time to compose herself, but her heart still pounds with hurt and anger and something like dread. Grace is in the kitchen, stirring sauce, her hair pulled back, wearing her nicest dress. The blue one, Brandon said, made her eyes look like sapphires. Mom! Grace turns, smiling, then sees Eleanor's face. What happened? You look pale. Eleanor sets down her purse, moves to the sink to wash her hands. The simple act of twisting the faucet sends pain shooting through her knuckles. But she hides it. She always hides it. Mom! A man. Today at the corner, he said terrible things. Grace's smile disappears. She wipes her hands on a towel, comes closer. What kind of things? Eleanor hesitates. Part of her wants to protect Grace, to keep this ugliness away from her daughter's happiness, but another part, the honest part that raised Grace to face truth, knows she can't hide this. He called me a beggar, said I should get a real job, said people like me are the problem with New York. The words come out flat, drained of the venom they carried when Brandon spoke them. Grace's face goes white. What did he look like? Tall, expensive suit, dark hair, blue eyes. Very handsome, in that cold way, the type of man who's never struggled a day in his life. Did he? Grace's voice catches. Did he say his name? Mr. Thompson called him Brandon Mitchell. The wooden spoon slips from Grace's hand, clatters on the floor. Sauce splatters. Neither of them moves to clean it. Grace, do you know him? He's my boyfriend, Mom. The words come out strangled. The man who's coming to dinner in an hour. That's Brandon. The apartment falls silent except for the sound of sauce bubbling on the stove, starting to burn. Eleanor reaches past Grace, turns off the burner. Her movements are automatic, her mind reeling. The man who said those things to me is the man you love. Grace can't speak, can't breathe. Her mind races through the past 6 months. Brandon's comments about homeless people, his dismissal of the superintendent in his building. The way he never wanted to come to Queens, always insisted they meet in Manhattan. Signs she ignored because his kisses made her forget. Because when he held her, she felt safe. We have to cancel, Eleanor declares. Call him. Tell him not to come. No! Grace! No, Mom! Grace's voice hardens, crystallizes into something sharp. He's going to come. He's going to walk through that door. And he's going to face what he did. Honey, he needs to look at you, Mom. Look at your face. Look at this apartment. Look at the dinner I made with the money I saved from tutoring. He needs to see us, really see us. Eleanor studies her daughter, sees the pain and anger and something like hope flickering in her eyes. Hope that maybe, confronted with the truth, Brandon will change. Hope that love might be stronger than prejudice. And if he doesn't apologize, if he defends what he said, Grace's jaw sets, then I'll know who he really is and I'll tell him to leave. Eleanor pulls Grace into a hug, feeling her daughter tremble against her. You deserve better than someone who looks down on where you came from. I know, but I have to give him this chance. I have to know if the man I fell in love with is real or just a fantasy I created. They stand together in the small kitchen, holding each other, both knowing that in less than an hour, everything will change. The source is ruined. Grace will have to start over. But maybe, Eleanor thinks, that's fitting. Maybe everything needs to start over tonight. On the wall, a small clock ticks towards 7. Outside, the October sun sets over Queens, casting long shadows. And somewhere in Manhattan, Brandon Mitchell climbs into his Mercedes, a bouquet of expensive roses on the passenger seat, oblivious that his perfect evening is about to shatter into 1,000 irreparable pieces. Grace steps back, wipes her eyes. I need to clean up this sauce. I'll help. They work together in silence, mother and daughter, preparing for a dinner that neither of them wants anymore, but both know must happen. Eleanor keeps thinking about Brandon's words. People like you are the problem. She's heard variations of that her entire life. From landlords, from customers who treated her like she was invisible, from society that values wealth over work, position over dignity. But she raised Grace to believe differently, to believe that character matters more than bank accounts, that kindness is worth more than quarterly profits. And tonight, Brandon Mitchell is going to learn whether those are just pretty words or principles worth fighting for. The buzzer rings at exactly 7 o'clock. Grace and Eleanor exchange one last look. Grace straightens her dress, takes a breath that doesn't quite steady her, and presses the intercom button. Come up. Eleanor moves to the small living room, sits on the worn couch, arranges herself with quiet dignity. She won't make this easy for him. Won't smile and pretend it didn't happen, but she also won't be cruel. She'll be exactly what she's always been, honest, direct, and unashamed of who she is. Footsteps echo in the hallway. 3 floors up. No elevator. Brandon's probably never climbed this many stairs in his adult life. A knock on the door. Grace opens it, her face a mask. Brandon stands there, flowers in hand, wine bottle tucked under his arm, smiling that confident smile that usually makes Grace's heart race. Today, it makes her stomach turn. Grace, you look beautiful. He leans in to kiss her cheek. She lets him, barely. Come in. He steps inside, and Grace watches his eyes catalogue everything, the peeling paint, the furniture from thrift stores, the small TV, the cramped kitchen visible through a doorway. The entire apartment could fit in his master bedroom twice over. It's cozy, Brandon says, that boardroom politeness sliding into place. Small, you can say it, I know it's small. Grace takes the flowers and wine, sets them on the counter with more force than necessary. I didn't mean my mother's in the living room. Brandon's face shifts into his meeting important people expression, warm but professional, interested but not overeager. He's practiced this smile in mirrors, used it to close deals and charm investors. He walks into the living room, hand extended. "Mrs. Dawson, it's wonderful to finally—" The words die. Eleanor stands, and Brandon's world tilts sideways. It's her, the flower vendor, the woman from the corner. "Meet you," he stammers, hand still extended, hanging in the air like a question no one wants to answer. Eleanor doesn't take his hand, doesn't smile, just looks at him with those same eyes that held hope and hurt 6 hours ago on Fifth Avenue. "Good evening, Mr. Mitchell," she says, her voice calm, cold. "I believe we've already met." Brandon's hand drops. His face goes pale. Grace watches from the kitchen doorway, arms crossed, waiting. You're the flower vendor." "I am, and you're the man who called me a beggar this afternoon." Eleanor sits back down, gestures to the chair across from her. "Please. Sit. Let's have that dinner you were so looking forward to." Brandon looks at Grace, desperate, seeking rescue, but her face is stone. "I think," Eleanor continues, reaching for the bowl of salad, "we have a lot to discuss, don't you?" The clock on the wall ticks. Outside, Queens settles into evening. And in the small apartment that Brandon dismissed the moment he entered, 3 people sit down to a dinner that will change everything. Brandon clears his throat. "Mrs. Dawson, I didn't know that I was Grace's mother. Would that have mattered? Or would you have been kind only because I matter to someone you love?" The question hangs in the air, sharp as the knife Eleanor uses to slice the roast. Brandon has no good answer, because she's right. He wouldn't have cared. Would have walked away just as easily, just as cruel. Grace brings plates to the table, her movements mechanical. Shall we say Grace? The irony of her own name isn't lost on anyone. They bow their heads. Eleanor speaks. "Lord, thank you for this food, for the hands that prepared it, and for the truth that reveals who we truly are. Amen." "Amen," Grace whispers. Brandon says nothing. The dinner has begun, and there's no going back. The roast sits in the center of the table, steam rising in lazy spirals. Eleanor serves it with practiced hands, her movements controlled, despite the arthritis that makes every grip an exercise in willpower. Brandon watches her, his mind racing, trying to find words that might repair what he's broken. "Eleanor, I didn't know," he begins, his voice tight, "that I was Grace's mother." Eleanor cuts through a slice of meat, the knife precise. "Does that matter, Mr. Mitchell, or would you have treated me with kindness, only because I'm connected to someone you claim to love?" Grace sits between them, silent as a judge. Her plate remains empty. She's not here to eat. She's here to witness. "I was having a bad day." Brandon tries again. "Stressed about work, rushing to a meeting. So stress gives you permission to humiliate strangers." Eleanor's voice never rises, but each word lands like a stone. "Interesting philosophy for a CEO. That's not what I meant." "Then what did you mean?" Grace speaks for the first time since they sat down. Her voice is ice. "When you called my mother a beggar, when you told her to get a real job, what exactly did you mean by that?" Brandon reaches for his water glass, buys himself 3 seconds. He's negotiated with hostile investors, faced down angry board members, closed deals that would make lesser men sweat. But right now, sitting in this cramped kitchen with 2 women who see through every corporate mask he's ever worn, he has no script. "I meant—" He stops, tries again. "I see people on the street every day, asking for money, not contributing. And I assumed—" "You assumed I was one of them." Eleanor sets down her knife. "Mr. Mitchell, I've worked that corner for 35 years. Rain, snow, heat that melts the pavement. I raised a daughter alone after my husband died, put her through college on flower money, never took a cent from the government, never asked anyone for charity." "Mom," Grace starts. "No, honey. He needs to hear this." Eleanor turns back to Brandon, and he sees the strength in her eyes, the kind of strength that comes from surviving, not conquering. I work because I believe in dignity, because I believe that honest labor, no matter how humble, matters. And you looked at me today like I was trash on your expensive shoes. The words hit Brandon like a physical blow. He wants to argue, to defend himself, but Grace's face stops him. Silent tears track down her cheeks, and he realizes she's not crying for him. She's crying for her mother, for every person who's been dismissed, overlooked, treated as invisible. "I'm sorry," he says, and means it, but sorry feels too small for what he's done. "Sorry?" Grace laughs, bitter. "You're sorry you got caught. Sorry it turned out to be my mother, but if it had been any other flower vendor, would you even remember their face?" Brandon opens his mouth, closes it. The truth is ugly, and he can't dress it up. "That's what I thought." Grace stands, starts clearing plates that no one's touched. "I've known you for 6 months, Brandon. 6 months of dinners at restaurants I couldn't afford. 6 months of you paying for everything because I'm just a teacher and you're a billionaire. 6 months of wondering why you never wanted to meet my family, why you always had excuses when I mentioned my mom. Grace, it wasn't like that." "Then what was it like?" She spins to face him, hands gripping the edge of the counter. "Tell me, why didn't you ever ask about where I came from, about my childhood, about the woman who raised me?" Brandon fumbles for an answer. The truth sits heavy in his throat. He didn't want to know, didn't want the complication of her reality interfering with the fantasy he'd built. Grace in cocktail dresses at charity events. Grace laughing at his jokes in expensive wine bars. Grace who was different from the other women who chased his money, but not so different that she challenged his worldview. "I thought we were taking things slow," he stammers. "Taking things slow." Grace's voice cracks. "You have a ring in your pocket. Sophia saw it at the fundraiser last week. You were going to propose, but you couldn't be bothered to learn the first thing about my life." Eleanor stands, touches Grace's shoulder. "Baby, maybe we should take a break." "No," Grace shakes her head. "No more breaks, no more excuses. Brandon, look at my mother. Really look at her." Brandon does, sees the worn hands, the simple dress, the grey hair pulled back in a practical bun. Sees the lines around her eyes from squinting in the sun, the slight hunch in her shoulders from bending over flower buckets for decades. Sees a woman who's worked harder in one day than he's worked in a month of board meetings. "She's beautiful," he murmurs. "Strong." "She is," Grace agrees, "and you made her feel worthless today." "I know." Brandon stands, takes a slow step toward Eleanor. "Mrs. Dawson, I have no excuse. I was cruel. I was wrong. And I'm sorry. Deeply sorry." Eleanor studies him for a long moment. "Do you know what hurt the most, Mr. Mitchell? Not the words. I've heard worse. It was the contempt in your voice. Like I didn't deserve basic human respect." "You're right. And if I wasn't Grace's mother, if you'd never see me again, would you still be sorry?" The question hangs between them. Brandon thinks about his father, dead at 49 from a heart attack brought on by stress and debt. Thinks about the hardware store that failed, the creditors who circled, the shame that ate at his father until there was nothing left. Brandon spent his whole adult life running from that memory, building walls of success to prove he'd never end up like the old man. But looking at Eleanor now, he sees something he'd missed. His father wasn't weak. He was ground down by a system that values profits over people. And Brandon became part of that system. Became the kind of man who would have looked down on his own father. "I don't know," he admits. "I want to say yes, but I honestly don't know if I would have thought twice about it." Grace closes her eyes, as if he's confirmed her worst fear. "At least you're honest," Eleanor says. "That's something." "It's not enough," Grace whispers. "Brandon, I can't do this. I can't be with someone who sees people like my mother, like my students' parents, like half the city, as less than human. I don't see them that way." "You do!" Grace's voice rises. "You do, even if you don't realize it. Every comment about lazy people on welfare, every joke about handouts, every time you dismiss someone because they're not rich or educated or powerful, you see them as less. Grace, please. What would you have done if I'd brought you here 3 months ago? If you'd seen this apartment, met my mum before you were too invested to walk away? Would you have stayed?" The question is a knife. Brandon wants to lie, to say of course, to promise that none of it would have mattered, but Grace's eyes demand truth. "I don't know," he says again. She nods, like he's confirmed everything. "Then we're done." "No." "Grace, no." Brandon reaches for her, but she steps back. "I need you to leave. Can we talk about this? Just give me a chance to explain. You've had 6 months to ask me about my life. You had today to not be cruel to an old woman selling flowers. You've had plenty of chances." Grace walks to the door, opens it. "Please go." Brandon looks at Eleanor, seeking some kind of intervention, but she remains silent. "I love you," he says to Grace, desperate. "You love the version of me that fits into your world, the teacher who looks good on your arm at fundraisers, the girlfriend who doesn't come with a mother who sells flowers on the street." Grace's voice breaks. "But you don't love me, not the real me." "That's not fair." "Fair?" Grace laughs through tears. "You want to talk about fair? My mother has worked every day for 35 years, through pain, through grief, through every season. She's more honest and more dignified than half the people in your social circle. But you looked at her and saw nothing worth respecting. So don't talk to me about fair." Brandon stands frozen, understanding that he's losing something precious and not knowing how to stop it. "What can I do?" "Nothing, not right now." Grace wipes her eyes. "Maybe if you'd apologized immediately. Maybe if you'd shown 1 ounce of humility. But you didn't. You made excuses. You tried to justify cruelty with stress and rushing and all the usual reasons people use when they don't want to admit they were wrong. I am admitting it. Too late." Grace holds the door wider. "Goodbye, Brandon." He wants to fight, wants to stay, to argue, to convince her she's wrong about him, but the look on her face tells him that anything he says now will only make it worse. "Eleanor." He turns to her one last time. "I'm sorry. Truly." "I believe you're sorry you were caught," Eleanor murmurs. "Whether you're sorry for the act itself, time will tell." Brandon walks to the door, stops in front of Grace. "Can I call you tomorrow?" "No." "Grace, you humiliated my mother, the woman who sacrificed everything for me, the woman who worked herself to exhaustion so I could have a better life. And you did it like it was nothing." Grace's voice hardens. "So no, you can't call me tomorrow. Or next week, or maybe ever." He wants to say something, anything that might crack the wall she's built. But words have failed him tonight in ways they never have before. Brandon steps into the hallway. The door closes behind him with a soft click that sounds final. He stands there for a moment, staring at the faded wallpaper, hearing muffled voices inside the apartment. Grace is crying. Eleanor is comforting her. And he's on the outside, locked out of the warmth he just destroyed. The walk down 3 flights of stairs feels longer than any journey he's taken. His Mercedes waits at the curb, sleek and expensive and alien in this neighborhood. He climbs in, sits in the leather interior, and feels hollower than he's ever felt in his life. His phone buzzes. Marcus. How'd it go? Brandon stares at the building where Grace lives, where a light still burns in the 3rd-floor window. Disastrous. What happened? The mother. I met her earlier today on the street, and I was terrible to her. How terrible. Called her a beggar. Told her to get a real job. The words taste like ash. Gosh, Brandon, I didn't know who she was. And if you had, would that have changed what you said? Marcus's voice is gentle but pointed. I keep asking myself that. Brandon starts the car but doesn't drive. Can't drive. Marcus, what have I become? Someone who forgot where he came from. My dad would be disappointed, Marcus finishes. Not because you're successful, because you use success as an excuse to look down on people still struggling. Brandon rests his forehead on the steering wheel. She broke up with me. Grace. She said, I don't really love her, that I only love the version that fits my world. Is she wrong? The question sits between them across the phone line. Brandon wants to argue, to insist that of course he loves Grace, all of her. But he's never met her friends from college, never visited her classroom, never asked about her childhood or her dreams or the things that shaped her into the woman she is. He fell in love with Grace notes, not the whole symphony. I don't know, he admits. Then maybe she's right to walk away. Thanks for the support. You want support or truth? Marcus challenges, because support is easy. Truth is what you need right now. Brandon lifts his head, looks back at the building. I hurt her, Marcus, hurt them both. Yeah, you did. How do I fix it? I don't know if you can. Not tonight. Not with apologies. Marcus pauses. Brandon, you've spent 15 years building walls, proving you're not your father, proving you're better than where you came from. And you became the kind of man who would have crushed your father's spirit. The words land like hammer blows. That's harsh. That's true. Your dad was a good man who worked hard and got unlucky. Elellanena is a good woman who works hard every day, and you treated her like she was nothing. So yeah, I'm being harsh, because someone needs to be. Brandon closes his eyes, sees his father's face, tired but always smiling. Remembers the hardware store, small but clean, customers greeted by name. Remembers how his dad would slip broken toys to kids whose parents couldn't afford new ones. Remembers kindness, generosity, humanity, and realizes he spent 15 years running from all of that. What do I do? He asks again, voice breaking. You change, Marcus says. Not for Grace, for yourself. Figure out who you actually want to be. Not who you think you should be to prove something. They hang up. Brandon sits in his Mercedes, watching the light in Grace's window until it finally goes dark. Then he drives back to Manhattan, to his penthouse with its perfect view and its perfect emptiness. He doesn't sleep, can't sleep. Instead, he stands at the window, watching the city lights, thinking about flowers and dignity and the price of success measured in lost humanity. Inside the Queen's apartment, Grace lies in her childhood bed, staring at the ceiling. Eleanor sits beside her, stroking her hair like she did when Grace was small. Did I do the right thing? Grace whispers. You did the brave thing, Eleanor responds. Whether it's the right thing, time will tell. I love him, Mom. I know, baby. But I can't be with someone who doesn't respect where I came from. Who doesn't respect you? No, you can't. Eleanor keeps stroking, gentle and steady. You deserve someone who sees value in all people, rich or poor, powerful or struggling. What if that person doesn't exist? Then you're better off alone than with someone who makes you compromise who you are. Grace turns on her side, pulls her knees up. He had a ring, Mom. Sophia saw it. He was going to propose. To someone he didn't really know. That's what scares me. 6 months together and he never really saw me. Eleanor lies down beside her daughter, pulls her close. Then you did the right thing. Love should see you, all of you. They lie there in the dark, holding each other, while across the city, Brandon Mitchell stares at his reflection in a window and sees, for the first time in years, a stranger. The night stretches on. Tomorrow will come with its demands and decisions. But tonight, three people reckon with truth, that wealth without compassion is poverty of the worst kind, that love requires seeing as much as feeling, and that sometimes the cruelest thing you can do is show someone who you really are. Brandon picks up his phone, types out a message, "I'm sorry. I know that's not enough, but I'm sorry." He stares at it for 5 minutes before deleting it unsent. Words won't fix this. Words got him into this mess in the first place. He needs to do something, needs to change something fundamental about who he is, but standing in his expensive apartment, surrounded by the trappings of success, he has no idea where to start. The only thing he knows for certain is that Grace Dawson saw him tonight, saw past the suits and the charm and the polished persona. And what she saw wasn't enough. He has to be better, has to become the man his father would have recognized, the man Grace deserves. The man who can look at Elellanena Dawson and see not a street vendor but a hero. But that transformation won't happen overnight, won't happen with grand gestures or expensive gifts. It will require something much harder, looking in the mirror and admitting he's been wrong about everything that matters. Brandon Mitchell built an empire. Now he needs to rebuild himself, and he has no blueprint for that. 7 days pass like 7 years. Brandon tries calling Grace on Monday morning, voicemail. He tries again at lunch, voicemail. By evening, his number is blocked. He sends flowers to the school on Tuesday, red roses, apology card attached. They arrive back at his office by courier that afternoon with a note in Grace's handwriting, "Don't." Wednesday, he stands outside P.S. 117 in Queens at 3:15, waiting by the chain-link fence as children pour out like water breaking through a dam. Grace emerges with a group of students, laughing at something a little girl says. Then she sees him, her smile vanishes. She says something to the kids, sends them toward their parents, and walks to where Brandon stands. "What are you doing here?" Her voice is flat, professional, the way you'd speak to a stranger. "I need to talk to you." "No, you don't." "Grace, please. 5 minutes." She crosses her arms, glances back at the school. "You need to leave. This is my workplace. I know I messed up, she laughs, sharp and bitter. "Brandon, you didn't mess up. You revealed who you are, and now you're stalking me at work because you can't accept that I'm done." "I'm not stalking. You called me 12 times yesterday, sent flowers I specifically asked you not to send, and now you're at my school. What do you call that?" The word hangs between them, ugly and true. Stalking. That's what this is. Not romantic pursuit, not fighting for love, just another powerful man who can't take no for an answer. "I'm sorry," he says, stepping back. "You're right. I'll go." A crack appears in Grace's armor. "Brandon, tell me something. In the past week, have you thought about what you did? Or have you only thought about getting me back?" The question stops him cold. Because she's right. He's been focused on the loss, not the cause. On winning her back, not on why he lost her in the first place. "That's what I thought." Grace turns away. "Don't come here again." She walks back to the school, shoulders straight, and doesn't look back. Brandon stands by the fence, watching her disappear inside, understanding that apologies mean nothing without change. And change requires looking at parts of himself he's spent 15 years avoiding. On Thursday afternoon, Brandon finds himself on 5th Avenue at 3 o'clock, standing across the street from Eleanor's flower cart. He's not sure why he's here, doesn't have a plan, just knows that Grace was right. He needs to think about what he did, not just that he got caught. Eleanor stands behind her cart, arranging daisies in a blue bucket. Her movements are slow, deliberate. Even from across the street, Brandon can see the stiffness in her hands, the way she pauses between actions to let the pain subside. A businessman in an expensive suit approaches, buys a bouquet without haggling over the price. Eleanor wraps the flowers in paper, hands them over with a smile that transforms her face into something almost young. The man thanks her, genuine warmth in his voice, and walks away clutching the bouquet like it's treasure. "Still watching, I see." Brandon turns. Mr. Thompson stands beside him, newspaper tucked under one arm, sardonic smile on his weathered face. "I'm not watching, I'm observing." That's a fancy word for watching. Thompson nods toward Eleanor. "She knows you're here, by the way. Spotted you about 10 minutes ago." Brandon's stomach drops. "I should go." "Why? You planning to insult her again? Because if not, might as well stay and actually learn something." "I don't understand." Thompson gestures toward a bench. "Sit. Let me educate you." They sit. Thompson unwraps a sandwich, offers half to Brandon, who declines. "See that woman over there," Thompson says around a bite of turkey on rye. "I've known her 35 years. Since the day she showed up with a bucket of roses and a 2-year-old baby strapped to her back." Brandon watches Eleanor greet an elderly couple, her face lighting up with recognition. "Her husband died in a construction accident," Thompson continues. "Fell from scaffolding on a project in Brooklyn, left her with nothing but debt and a baby, no education past high school, no family to help, just her and that little girl." "Grace," Brandon murmurs. "Grace. Smart as a whip even then. Eleanor could have taken welfare, could have put Grace in the system and gotten a factory job somewhere. But she wanted to be there when her daughter came home from school, wanted to make sure Grace had a mother, not just a paycheck." A young woman stops at Eleanor's cart, clearly stressed, eyes red from crying. Eleanor murmurs to her, hands her a single rose, refuses payment. The woman hugs her. "She does that a lot," Thompson says. "Gives flowers to people who need them. Homeless folks on bad days, kids who can't afford to buy their mums something nice. She makes less than minimum wage most weeks, but she gives away more than she sells." Brandon feels something twist in his chest. Shame, yes, but also something else. Recognition, maybe, of everything he's lost in his climb to the top. "Why are you telling me this?" he asks. "Because you looked at her and saw failure. I look at her and see success. Different kind of success than you're used to, but success all the same. She raised a daughter who's changing lives. She built a business that brings beauty to people's days. She survived grief and poverty and pain, and she's still standing there smiling." Thompson finishes his sandwich, crumples the wrapper. "Your daddy had a hardware store, right?" Brandon's head snaps up. "How did you—" "I asked around. Turns out Thomas Mitchell was a good man. Helped people fix things even when they couldn't pay. Knew his customers by name. Worked himself to death trying to provide for his family. He failed. He died trying. That's not failure. That's tragedy." Thompson stands, brushes crumbs from his pants. "You want to honor him, stop running from what he was, and start learning from it. Because right now, you're everything he wasn't. Rich and miserable instead of poor and decent." Thompson walks back to his newsstand, leaving Brandon alone with his thoughts and the view of Eleanor across the street. Still smiling, still working, still standing, despite everything life threw at her. That night, Brandon sits in his office long after everyone else has gone home. The city glitters below, indifferent to his crisis. He opens his laptop, types his father's name into the search bar. Articles load. Old ones from 15 years ago. Local hardware store closes after 20 years. Brooklyn community mourns loss of beloved business owner. Thomas Mitchell, 49, dies of heart attack. Brandon clicks through them, reading words he never wanted to see. Testimonials from customers, stories of his father's generosity, photos of the store, his dad behind the counter, tool belt around his waist, genuine smile on his face. One article includes a quote from a neighbor. "Tom Mitchell would give you the shirt off his back. He helped me fix my sink when I couldn't afford a plumber. Never asked for payment, just said that's what neighbors do." Brandon remembers that neighbor, Mrs. Chen, who brought them soup when his dad got sick, who cried at the funeral louder than anyone except Brandon's mother. He finds his father's obituary, survived by wife Patricia and son Brandon. Memorial donations to the local Boys and Girls Club. No mention of the debt, the foreclosure, the failure that Brandon built into mythology. Marcus knocks on the doorframe. "You're still here? Reading about my dad?" Marcus comes in, looks at the screen. "You never talk about him." "I erased him, pretended he didn't exist because it was easier than admitting I come from..." Brandon gestures at the screen, at the modest hardware store, the working-class neighborhood. "You come from love," Marcus says. "That's not something to erase. I made Eleanor feel worthless because she reminded me of him, of everything I spent 15 years running from." "Yeah, you did." Marcus sits in the chair across from Brandon's desk. "So what are you going to do about it?" Brandon stares at the screen, at his father's face, younger than Brandon is now, but looking so much older, tired but happy, broke but rich in ways that matter. "I don't know how to fix this." "Start small, one gesture at a time. She won't talk to me. Grace blocked my number. Eleanor probably hates me. I can't just throw money at this." "No, you can't," Marcus agrees. "But you can do something meaningful. Something that honors what you learned instead of trying to buy forgiveness." Brandon looks at his CFO, his friend, the man who's been beside him through every success, and watched him become someone neither of them quite recognizes anymore. "The school," Brandon ventures. "Grace's school. They need funding." "Most public schools do. What if we made a donation, a real one? Not in my name, in my father's." Marcus leans back, considering. "How much?" $50,000. "For books, supplies, whatever they need most. That's a good start." "Is it enough?" "No," Marcus says. "It's not about the money, Brandon. It's about what the money represents. Are you doing this to impress Grace, or because it's the right thing to do?" Brandon looks at his father's photo again, thinks about Mrs. Chen's sink, about free repairs, about kindness given without expectation of return. "Both," he admits. "I want Grace back. But I also want to be the kind of man my dad would recognize, the kind who helps because helping matters, not because there's something in it for me." "Then do it. But don't expect it to fix everything. Grace is smart. She'll know you're trying. Whether that's enough, only time will tell." On Friday, Brandon makes the donation, anonymous, through the Thomas Mitchell Memorial Fund that he creates specifically for this purpose. He adds a note, "In honor of a man who believed in education, community, and giving back." The school's principal calls Marcus on Monday. They're overwhelmed, grateful, asking if there's anything they can do to thank the donor. "Just use it well," Marcus tells her. Grace finds out on Tuesday. She sees the new computers arriving, the boxes of books, the art supplies her students have needed for months. The principal gathers the staff, announces the donation, shares the donor's name. Thomas Mitchell. Grace freezes. She knows that name. Brandon's father. Brandon, who hasn't contacted her in 4 days, who seems to have finally accepted her decision, has done this. She finds Sophia in the teacher's lounge at lunch. "He made a donation," Grace says without preamble. "Who?" "Brandon. Under his father's name, $50,000. Sophia whistles low. "That's not nothing." "No, it's not," Grace sits heavily. But I don't know what it means. Is he trying to buy me back? Or is he actually changing? Does it matter? Yes. No, I don't know. Grace puts her head in her hands. Part of me wants to call him, thank him, tell him I see what he's doing, and part of me thinks this is exactly what he does. Throws money at problems and expects them to disappear. What does your gut say? Grace thinks about the man who stood outside her school last week, who looked adrift when she told him to leave. Thinks about the man who called her mother a beggar, and the man who loved his father enough to honor him with a memorial fund. I think he's trying, she whispers, but I don't know if trying is enough. On Wednesday, Eleanor notices something strange. A man approaches her cart just before closing, well-dressed but not flashy, polite but distant. I'd like to buy your remaining inventory, he says. My what? Everything you have left, all the flowers. I'll pay double your normal price. Eleanor stares. That's over $200. I know. He pulls out cash, counts each bill twice. $240 to be exact. Will that cover it? Who are you? A friend. Someone who appreciates your work. He takes the flowers, loads them into a van, and drives away before Eleanor can ask more questions. She stands behind her empty cart, holding more money than she usually makes in a week. Knowing exactly who sent that man, Brandon Mitchell, trying to help without expecting thanks or recognition. That night, Eleanor tells Grace about the mysterious buyer. It was him, Grace says. I know. Are you angry? Eleanor considers. No. I'm confused. The man who insulted me wouldn't do this, but the man Grace loves might. I don't know which one is real. Maybe both. Maybe people are complicated. Eleanor reaches across the table, takes Grace's hand. Baby, I'm not telling you to forgive him. I'm telling you that he's trying, and trying is where change starts. But what if he stops trying once he gets me back? Then you'll know. But if you never give him the chance to prove he's changed, you'll never know if he could have been the man you hoped he was. Grace pulls her hand back, wraps her arms around herself. I'm scared, Mom. Of what? Of letting him in again. Of being wrong about him. Of loving someone who can't see people the way I need him to see them. Eleanor nods, understanding. Those are all good fears. Smart fears. But don't let fear stop you from seeing what's in front of you. He hurt me, yes, but he's also trying to make amends. Not with words, with actions. Is it enough? For me? I'm starting to think maybe, for you, only you can answer that. Brandon doesn't know about the conversation between Grace and Eleanor, doesn't know that Grace is softening, that Eleanor is considering forgiveness. He only knows that he wakes up Thursday morning and hates what he sees in the mirror. Not the expensive haircut or the designer stubble or the body maintained by personal trainers. He hates the eyes. Cold, calculating. The eyes of a man who measures success in dollars and looks down on people who measure it in dignity. He gets dressed, goes to work, sits through meetings where they discuss quarterly profits and market share and expansion strategies, and for the first time in his career, he feels nothing, no excitement, no pride, just emptiness. At lunch, he walks to his father's old neighborhood in Brooklyn. The hardware store is gone, replaced by a trendy coffee shop, but the building's still there, the bones of what his father built. Brandon goes inside, orders coffee, sits by the window where his father used to display hammers and nails and screwdrivers. A young couple comes in, clearly struggling financially, counting change to buy one small coffee to share. The barista, maybe 22, with kind eyes, charges them for one but hands them two. Slow day, she says with a wink. I made too much. The couple thanks her, genuine gratitude in their voices. They sit at a corner table, sharing the coffees, murmuring together, hands intertwined. Brandon watches them and thinks about Eleanor, working in pain, about Grace, teaching kids in underfunded schools. About his father, giving away more than he could afford because kindness mattered more than profit. He's been measuring the wrong things his entire adult life. His phone buzzes. A text from an unknown number. "Thank you for the donation. The kids are thrilled." Grace Brandon stares at the message. She unblocked him. She reached out. It's not forgiveness, not reconciliation, but it's something. A crack in the door he slammed shut with his cruelty. He types back, "It's what my dad would have done. I'm trying to learn from him, finally." 3 dots appear, disappear, appear again. Then, "I know, I see you trying. Is it enough?" A long pause. Then, "I don't know yet, but it's a start." Brandon sits in the coffee shop his father never got to see, in the neighborhood his father loved, and feels something he hasn't felt in 7 days. Hope. Small, fragile, but real. He's not fixed, not redeemed, not transformed into the man Grace deserves, but he's trying, and for the first time in 15 years, he's thinking about his father without shame. Thinking about Eleanor without contempt, thinking about wealth not as a shield against his past, but as a tool to honor it. The work has just begun, but at least now, finally, he knows what work needs doing. Across the city, Grace sits in her classroom after school, staring at her phone. She wants to believe Brandon is changing, wants to believe the man she fell in love with exists somewhere under the armor. But wanting isn't enough. She needs proof, time, evidence that this isn't just guilt-driven gestures but genuine transformation. Still, she thinks about his text, about his father, about the scared boy who lost everything and built walls so high he forgot what they were protecting him from. Maybe Eleanor is right. Maybe people are complicated. Maybe change is possible. But Grace has been hurt before by men who promised to be better and never were, so she'll watch. She'll wait. She'll give Brandon space to prove himself not through grand romantic gestures, but through consistent, quiet choices that show who he's becoming. And if he fails, if he reverts to the man who called her mother a beggar, she'll survive. She's survived worse. But if he succeeds, if he becomes the man she believed he could be, Grace doesn't let herself finish the thought. Not yet. Hope is dangerous when it's too early, but she lets herself feel the smallest possibility of it, warm in her chest like the first day of spring after a long winter. Outside, the sun sets over Queens, casting golden light through classroom windows. And somewhere in Brooklyn, Brandon Mitchell sits in his father's old neighborhood and remembers how to be human again. It's not much, but it's something. And something is where every transformation begins. The text from Grace sits on Brandon's phone like a promise. Not forgiveness, but possibility. For 3 days, he resists the urge to respond, to push, to demand more than she's ready to give. He's learning patience, learning that some things can't be rushed or bought. On Saturday morning, his mother calls, "Brandon, darling. Lunch today. The club. 1 o'clock. Victoria Mitchell doesn't ask. She summons. Brandon considers saying no, considers the mountain of work waiting on his desk, the budget proposals Marcus needs reviewed, but something in his mother's tone suggests this isn't optional. "I'll be there." The Connecticut Country Club sits on manicured grounds that cost more to maintain than most people earn in a year. Brandon's Mercedes looks at home here, unlike in Queens where it stood out like a wound. He parks, straightens his jacket, and walks into the dining room where his mother waits at her usual table by the window. Victoria Mitchell is 58 but looks 45, maintained by expensive procedures and rigid self-discipline. Her blonde hair is perfect, her linen dress unwrinkled, her jewelry understated but genuine. She stands, kisses the air near Brandon's cheek. "You look tired," she observes. I've been busy. So I've heard. She sits, gestures for him to do the same. Word travels in our circles. You've been making quite the impression. Brandon orders water, declines wine. What are you talking about? The Thomas Mitchell Memorial Fund. $50,000 to a public school in Queens. Rather sentimental, don't you think? His jaw tightens. It's a good cause. It's your father's name. The man who died, broke and embarrassed. Victoria sips her wine, her expression cool. Darling, I thought we moved past all that. Maybe I don't want to move past it. Then you're being foolish. She sets down her glass with precision. I also heard about your little romance. A teacher from Queens. How quaint. Her name is Grace. I don't care what her name is. I care that you're throwing away your reputation for someone completely unsuitable. Brandon feels heat rising in his chest. Unsuitable how? Please, she teaches in public school, lives in a terrible neighborhood. And her mother... Victoria pauses for effect. Her mother sells flowers on the street, like some kind of beggar. The word hits Brandon like a slap. Beggar. The same word he used. The word that destroyed everything. Don't call her that. Why not? It's accurate. Victoria leans forward, her voice dropping. Brandon, I didn't work this hard to build our family's reputation only to have you drag us back down with poor choices. Our family's reputation. Mother, you grew up in a one-bedroom apartment in the Bronx. You married Dad when he had a hardware store and nothing else. And then I improved our situation. I married Richard after your father died. I gave you connections, opportunities, everything you needed to become who you are. You gave me shame. The words come out sharp. You taught me to hide where we came from, to pretend Dad never existed, to look down on people who remind us of what we used to be. Victoria's expression hardens. I taught you to survive, to succeed. Your father was a good man, but goodness doesn't pay bills. Kindness doesn't build empires. Maybe empire building isn't worth what we paid for it. Oh, please. Victoria signals the waiter, orders for both of them without asking what Brandon wants. You sound like him now. All that noble poverty nonsense. Look where it got him, dead at 49 from stress and failure. He died trying to help people. He died because he was weak. He couldn't adapt, couldn't be ruthless when needed. And I refuse to let you make the same mistakes. Brandon stares at his mother, really seeing her for the first time in years. Sees the woman who erased her past so completely that she forgot why it mattered, who climbed social ladders by stepping on everything and everyone she left behind. Did you know, he asks, about Eleanor, about what I said to her? Victoria blinks. Who's Eleanor? Grace's mother, the flower vendor. Did you know I humiliated her before I knew who she was? I heard something about it. Social circles talk. Victoria waves a hand. Brandon, it's not that serious. You didn't know she was connected to the girl. And if she wasn't, would it still be okay? Would what be okay? Calling her a beggar, telling her to get a real job, treating her like garbage. Victoria sighs, the way she might at a child who doesn't understand. People like that expect to be overlooked. They're part of the scenery. You didn't do anything wrong. Brandon pushes back from the table, chair scraping loud against the floor. Several nearby diners glance over. Everything you just said is wrong. Every single word. Don't be dramatic. I'm not being dramatic. I'm being honest. For the first time in 15 years, I'm being honest about who I am and where I came from and what actually matters. Victoria's eyes narrow. This girl has brainwashed you. No. She woke me up. She showed me that I'd become exactly what Dad would have hated, a man who measures worth in dollar signs and treats people like trash if they don't meet some arbitrary standard of success. Your father was a failure. My father was a hero. Brandon's voice rises. More people stare. He doesn't care. He worked himself to death trying to provide for us. He helped people even when he couldn't afford to. He treated everyone with dignity and respect. And you spent 15 years convincing me that was weakness, when it was actually the strongest thing he ever did. Victoria stands, face flushed. Lower your voice. You're making a scene. Good. Maybe more people need to hear this. Maybe more people need to know that Victoria Mitchell is ashamed of where she came from, that she'd rather pretend her first husband never existed than admit she married a working-class man. That's enough. No, it's not. You want to know why I called Eleanor a beggar? Because you taught me to. Every comment you made about those people. Every time you looked down on service workers and teachers and anyone who didn't summer in the Hamptons. You taught me that poverty equals failure, that kindness equals weakness, and I believed you. Victoria's hand trembles as she reaches for her wine. I gave you everything. You gave me money. You gave me connections. But you took away my father's memory. You took away my ability to see people as people instead of status symbols. And what does this teacher see when she looks at you? Your sterling character or your bank account? She sees me, the real me, and she walked away because what she saw wasn't good enough, because I'd become so much like you that I couldn't recognize decency when it sold flowers on a street corner. Victoria's voice drops to ice. If you continue this relationship, I will cut you off completely. No more family connections. No more support. You'll be on your own. Brandon laughs, bitter and broken. Mother, I've been on my own since Dad died, and you pretended he never existed. The only difference is now I know it. He throws money on the table, more than enough to cover both meals, and walks out. Victoria calls after him, but he doesn't stop. Doesn't look back. Just keeps walking to his car, hands shaking with adrenaline and fury and something that might be freedom. Victoria Mitchell is not a woman who accepts defeat. 3 days after the disastrous lunch, she makes a decision. If Brandon won't listen to reason, perhaps the teacher will. She has her assistant find Grace's schedule, P.S. 117, Queens, dismissal at 3:15. On Wednesday afternoon, Victoria drives her Lexus into the school parking lot and waits. Grace emerges at 3:30, talking with a colleague, laughing at something. Victoria steps out of her car, calls out, "Miss Dawson?" Grace turns, confusion crossing her face. "Yes, I'm Victoria Mitchell, Brandon's mother. Might I have a word?" The colleague glances between them, whispers something to Grace, and walks away. Grace crosses her arms, defensive. "What do you want?" "Just a conversation." 5 minutes of your time. They move to a bench near the playground. Kids run and shriek in the background. Victoria inspects the bench before sitting, avoiding anything that might stain her dress. "I'll be direct," Victoria begins. "You're not right for my son." Grace's eyes flash. "Excuse me. Brandon has a future. A legacy. He's built something remarkable. And you," Victoria waves toward the school, "you're a public school teacher. Your mother sells flowers on the street. You have nothing to offer him." "Nothing to offer?" Grace's voice is steel. "I offered him honesty, integrity, a chance to be better than the man he was becoming. You offered him guilt. You made him ashamed of his success. I made him aware that success without humanity is just greed." Victoria's smile is sharp. "You sound like his father. That same naive idealism. Look where it got him. Dead and forgotten." Grace stands. "This conversation is over." "Wait." Victoria stands too, plays her final card. "Brandon spoke with me this weekend. About you. About your mother." "What did he say?" "He said the relationship was a mistake, that he needs to focus on his career, that he's been distracted by sentiment and nostalgia." The lies come smooth and practiced. He asked me to speak with you because he doesn't have the courage to end things himself. Grace's face goes pale. I don't believe you. Call him, ask him, see if he answers. Victoria reaches into her purse, pulls out a business card. When you're ready to accept reality, call my assistant. I'll make sure you're compensated for your time. Let's say $50,000, enough to ease the sting of a failed romance. She places the card on the bench and walks away, heels clicking on pavement. Behind her, Grace stands frozen, the card sitting between them like an accusation. Grace doesn't call Brandon, doesn't want to give Victoria the satisfaction of being right, but the words eat at her. He asked me to speak with you. He doesn't have the courage to end things himself. She goes home, tells Eleanor everything. She's lying, Eleanor says. How do you know? Because I've seen how that boy looks at you. That's not something you fake. But what if she's telling the truth? What if the donations and the texts were just guilt? What if he talked to his mother and realized I'm not worth the trouble? Eleanor pulls Grace close. Then he's a fool. But baby, I don't think he's a fool. I think his mother is scared. Scared of what? Of losing control. Of her son becoming someone she can't manipulate. Eleanor strokes Grace's hair. Don't let her win by doubting yourself. But doubt has already crept in. Grace remembers Brandon's silence over the past few days. Remembers how he hasn't pushed to see her, hasn't tried to call. Maybe Victoria is right. Maybe the text saying he was trying was all she'll ever get. Brandon knows none of this, doesn't know his mother went to Grace's school, doesn't know the poison Victoria planted. He's busy making changes. On Monday, he calls an emergency board meeting. The Thomas Mitchell Memorial Fund is now a permanent part of Mitchell & Co. Duct, he announces. We're allocating $5 million annually to support education, small businesses, and workers in need. The board erupts. Voices overlap. 5 million. That's excessive. Our shareholders, Brandon raises a hand. They quiet. This isn't optional. It's happening. And if you don't like it, the door is open. Marcus speaks up from his seat. The preliminary numbers show that corporate social responsibility initiatives actually increase shareholder value long-term. Good PR, tax benefits, community goodwill. I don't care about PR, Brandon interrupts. I care about doing the right thing. But Marcus is right. This is good business, in addition to being moral business. One board member, Gerald Hutchins, a man in his 60s with old money and older ideas, stands, "This is absurd. Your father built this company on profits, not charity. My father died broke because he cared more about people than profits, and I spent 15 years thinking that made him weak. I was wrong, so I'm fixing it. By throwing money away, by investing in the communities we operate in, by acknowledging that corporations have responsibilities beyond quarterly earnings." Another board member, "What brought this on? Some midlife crisis?" "A woman," Brandon says. "A woman who showed me that everything I thought mattered actually doesn't, and everything I thought didn't matter is all that does." The room falls silent. Gerald shakes his head. "You're letting emotions cloud judgment." "No, I'm letting emotions inform judgment. There's a difference." Brandon looks around the table. "Anyone who wants to leave, leave. Anyone who stays, understand that Mitchell & Co. is changing. We're going to be profitable and ethical." Revolutionary concept, I know. The meeting ends with grumbling but no resignations. Marcus stays after everyone else leaves. That was bold. That was necessary. Grace know about this? No, and she doesn't need to. I'm not doing this for her. I'm doing it because it's right. Marcus studies his friend. "You love her." "Yes." "Have you told her?" "Not recently. She asked for space. I'm giving it to her." "Space can turn into distance." I know, but I can't rush this. I can't demand she forgive me just because I'm trying to change. Brandon runs a hand through his hair. She needs to see that this isn't temporary, that I'm not going to revert to who I was the moment things get comfortable. What if she never comes back? Brandon looks out the window at Manhattan, at the empire he built on his father's grave. Then at least I'll be able to look at myself in the mirror again. That's worth something, but Grace doesn't know about the board meeting, doesn't know about Brandon's changes. Victoria's words poison every thought. On Thursday, Sophia finds Grace crying in the bathroom during lunch. What happened? His mother came to see me, said Brandon wants to end things but doesn't have the guts to do it himself. And you believed her. I don't know what to believe. Grace wipes her eyes. He hasn't called, hasn't tried to see me. Maybe she's right. Maybe the donations were just guilt purchases and now he's moved on. Or maybe he's giving you the space you asked for. But what if... Stop. Sophia grabs Grace's shoulders. You're catastrophizing. You told him you needed time. He's respecting that. His mother is manipulating you because she's scared of losing control over him. How do you know? Because rich people always do this. They can't handle when their kids choose love over legacy. Grace wants to believe that, wants to trust that Brandon is fighting for them in his own way. But Victoria's words echo. He doesn't have the courage. Friday night, Brandon sits alone in his penthouse. He picks up his phone a dozen times to call Grace, puts it down each time. She asked for space. He'll give her space, even if it kills him. His phone rings. Unknown number. Hello? Mr. Mitchell, this is Carmen Rodriguez from PS 117. I'm the principal. Brandon's heart jumps. Is Grace okay? She's fine. I'm calling about your donation. We want to do something to thank you in public. Maybe a ceremony. No, please. The donation is anonymous. We know it came from you. Keep it quiet anyway. Please, I didn't do it for recognition. A pause. Mr. Mitchell, may I speak frankly? Of course. Grace is one of the best teachers I've ever worked with. Smart, dedicated, loves her students, and she's been miserable for 2 weeks. Brandon closes his eyes. I know. Fix it. Whatever you did, fix it, because that woman deserves to be happy, and I think you might be what makes her happy. I'm trying. Try harder. Life's too short for pride. She hangs up. Brandon stares at his phone, at the city lights, at his reflection in the dark window. He looks different than he did 3 weeks ago. Softer somehow. More human. But what good is transformation if Grace never sees it? He types a text. I miss you. I'm changing. I hope you can see that someday. He hovers over send for 5 minutes. Then deletes it. Words aren't enough anymore. He needs action. Proof. Something undeniable. But what? The answer doesn't come. He falls asleep on the couch, phone in hand, dreaming of flowers and forgiveness. Across the city, Grace lies awake, phone dark, wondering if she's making the biggest mistake of her life by letting him go. 2 people, separated by miles and misunderstanding, both loving each other and both too scared to reach across the gap. Sometimes the hardest part of transformation isn't changing. It's trusting that change is real. And neither of them trusts quite enough yet. Marcus Chen doesn't believe in coincidences, but he does believe in opportunities. When Sofia Martinez's number appears on his phone Sunday morning, he answers, "We need to talk," she says without preamble. About our idiots. They're in love and miserable and too stubborn to fix it. Marcus smiles. Coffee, 1 hour. You pick the place. They meet at a diner in Astoria, neutral territory between Manhattan and Queens. Sophia arrives first, already halfway through her coffee when Marcus slides into the booth. Grace thinks Brandon gave up on her. Sophia says, his mother told her Brandon wants out but doesn't have the guts to say it. Marcus swears. Victoria, she's terrified of losing control over him. Well, she succeeded. Grace thinks it's over. He's giving her space because she asked for it. Meanwhile, he's turned the company upside down. $5 million a year for community programs. His mother threatened to cut him off. Sophia's eyes widen. He chose Grace over his mother's approval. He chose being decent over being his mother's puppet. But Grace doesn't know any of this. Sophia leans back. So we have two people who love each other, kept apart by pride and misunderstanding. And Victoria's lies. What if we gave them a reason to be in the same place? Marcus nods. He's organizing a gala, honoring the invisible workers of New York City. Eleanor's going to be one of the honorees. When? 2 weeks, Sophia grins. Eleanor will want Grace there. We convince her to go. Brandon doesn't know she's coming. That's manipulative. That's love. Sophia signals the waitress for more coffee. Sometimes people need a push. What if it backfires? What if Grace is so convinced he's moved on that seeing him just makes things worse? Then, at least, they'll have clarity. But I don't think that's what happens. I think she sees him. He sees her, and all the walls come down. Marcus considers, I'll make sure Brandon doesn't know she's coming. Element of surprise. I'll work on Grace. Between me and Eleanor, we'll get her there. They shake hands across the table, conspirators in the name of love. The invitation arrives at Eleanor's apartment on Monday. Heavy cardstock, elegant script. You are cordially invited to Honoring the Invisible, a celebration of New York's essential workers. The Mitchell Foundation requests the honor of your presence as one of our esteemed honorees. Eleanor reads it 3 times, tears forming. She's never been honored for anything, never been called esteemed. For 35 years, she's been invisible, exactly as the invitation suggests. And now Brandon Mitchell, the man who once called her a beggar, wants to celebrate her. Grace comes home from school, finds her mother crying at the kitchen table. Mom, what's wrong? Eleanor hands her the invitation. Grace reads it, her expression closing. It's a trap. It's an honor. It's Brandon trying to manipulate you, trying to make himself look good. Or it's Brandon trying to make amends, real amends. Eleanor takes Grace's hand. Baby, you need to come with me. No. Grace. Mom, I can't. I can't see him. Not after what his mother said. Not after he's been silent for 2 weeks. He's been silent because you asked for space. Or because he got what he wanted. He eased his guilt with some donations, and now he's moved on to the next charity case. Eleanor stands, crosses to the window. Outside, the city hums with life. When your father died, I was angry. Angry at him for leaving. Angry at God for taking him. Angry at the world for continuing when mine had stopped. Grace stays silent, knowing her mother needs to finish. I could have stayed angry. Could have let it poison everything. But one day, your father's friend Carlos came to me. He said, Eleanor, Pedro wouldn't want you to stop living. He'd want you to find joy again. And I realized holding on to anger was easier than risking my heart again. This is different. It's exactly the same. You're holding on to anger because it's safer than trusting Brandon might have actually changed. But what if he hasn't? Then you survive, like you always do. But what if he has? What if that man you fell in love with is real, just buried under years of fear and pain? Are you going to let him slip away because you're too scared to find out? Grace closes her eyes. I don't know if I'm strong enough. You're the strongest person I know. You just need to remember that strength isn't about building walls. It's about knowing when to open doors. Sophia arrives an hour later. backup reinforcements. "You're going to that gala," she announces. "Sophia, not you too." "Yes, me too. Grace, I talked to Marcus. Brandon's been tearing his company apart trying to be better. He stood up to his mother, chose you over family approval, and you're going to sit here feeling sorry for yourself instead of finding out if he's for real." His mother said. His mother lied. She's scared and desperate and clinging to control. Are you going to let that woman win? Grace looks between her mother and her best friend, two women who've never steered her wrong. What if I go and he breaks my heart again? Then we'll be there to help you pick up the pieces, Sophia says. But I don't think that's what happens. I think you go, you see him, and you realize you've both been fighting for the same thing, which is each other. 2 weeks later, Grace stands in her bedroom, staring at the blue dress hanging on the door. The one Brandon said made her eyes look like sapphires. She hasn't worn it since the night they broke up. Eleanor appears in the doorway. "You look beautiful." "I look terrified." "You can be both." Eleanor fastens a simple necklace around Grace's neck, a small silver flower. "Your father gave me this on our wedding day. For courage," he said. "Flowers grow anywhere there's love." The phrase echoes in Grace's mind. Flowers don't grow in perfect soil, they grow where there's love. The second time Eleanor's said something similar, like a mantra, like a promise. The car Marcus sent arrives at 7. Black sedan, professional driver, completely unnecessary but somehow perfect. Sophia meets them at the venue, looking stunning in red. "Ready?" she asks Grace. "No." "Good. The best things happen when we're not ready." The ballroom is transformed. Not the cold corporate elegance Grace expected, but warm and welcoming. Photos line the walls, huge portraits of working people, a street vendor like Eleanor, a subway conductor, a janitor, a delivery driver, a home health aide. Each face proud, dignified, beautiful in its honesty. In the center, Eleanor's photo, massive. Her smile bright, her hands holding flowers, the caption reading, "Eleanor Dawson, 35 years of bringing beauty to Fifth Avenue." Eleanor gasps. "That's me." "That's you," Grace confirms, emotion thick in her throat. They're directed to a table near the front. Eleanor's place card reads, "Honoree." Grace's reads, "Guest of Honor." Around them, other workers and their families settle in, stunned and grateful. Grace scans the room for Brandon, doesn't see him. Maybe he won't even be here. Maybe he'll send a representative, make the whole thing feel hollow and performative. Then the lights dim. A voice over the speaker. "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Brandon Mitchell." He walks onto the stage, and Grace's breath catches. He looks different. Not the polished CEO she remembers. His suit is still expensive, but somehow less armor-like. His hair is more relaxed, and his eyes, when they sweep the crowd, look softer. More human. He hasn't seen her yet. Grace both wants him to and dreads it. Brandon stands at the microphone. No notes, no script. He takes a breath. "Thank you for coming. I know many of you are wondering why you're here. Why a billionaire CEO decided to throw a party for janitors and street vendors and people society usually ignores." He pauses, looking at the faces in front of him. 4 weeks ago, I humiliated a woman. I called her a beggar, told her to get a real job. I did it because I was rushing to a meeting that felt important. Because I was stressed and arrogant and completely disconnected from anything resembling human decency. The room is silent. You could hear a pin drop. That woman is here tonight, Eleanor Dawson, and she's one of the most extraordinary people I've ever met. Grace feels her mother's hand squeeze hers. Eleanor works every day in pain, arthritis that makes every flower arrangement an act of will. But she shows up. She smiles. She brings beauty to people's lives. And when I disrespected her, she maintained her dignity, didn't curse me out, didn't cause a scene, just stood there holding her flowers while I proved what kind of man I'd become. Brandon's voice cracks. He clears his throat. My father, Thomas Mitchell, owned a hardware store in Brooklyn. He died when I was 19, and I spent 15 years being ashamed of him. Ashamed that he failed, ashamed that he died broke. Ashamed that I came from working-class roots. The workers in the audience lean forward, recognizing something of themselves in his story. But my father wasn't a failure, he was a hero. He helped people even when he couldn't afford to. He treated everyone with respect, and he loved his work because it meant something beyond profit. Brandon looks directly at Eleanor now. Eleanor reminded me of my father. And instead of being grateful for that reminder, I tried to destroy it because it was easier to despise her than to face my own shame. He steps away from the microphone, walks to Eleanor's table. The crowd parts. Grace watches, heart hammering, as Brandon kneels beside her mother. Eleanor, I'm so sorry. Not because you turned out to be someone important to me, but because you are important, period. Your work matters, your dignity matters. And I was wrong to suggest otherwise. Eleanor's eyes fill with tears. You already apologized. I know, but I needed to do it in public. Needed to acknowledge, in front of witnesses, that I was cruel, and you were gracious, that you had every right to hate me, and instead you gave me a chance to be better. You're trying to be better, Eleanor says. That's all anyone can ask. I'm trying. I don't know if I'll succeed. But I'm trying. Eleanor reaches out, touches his cheek. Your father would be proud. Brandon's composure breaks. Tears spill. He doesn't hide them, just accepts Eleanor's hand, this woman he wronged, offering forgiveness he's not sure he deserves. Then Eleanor says, there's someone else you need to talk to. She nods toward Grace. Brandon turns, sees her for the first time tonight. His face transforms. Shock, hope, fear, love, all at once. Grace stands. Doesn't trust her voice, doesn't trust her legs, but she stands. They stare at each other across 3 feet that might as well be 3 miles. Hi, he says. Hi, I didn't know you'd be here. I almost wasn't. I'm glad you are. The room around them fades. There's only Brandon looking at her like she's air and he's been drowning. Can we talk? He asks. Somewhere quiet. Grace nods. He leads her out of the ballroom, through a side door, onto a terrace overlooking the city. It's cold, November wind sharp, but neither of them notices. Your mother told me what Victoria said to you, Brandon begins. She lied, all of it. I never asked her to end things. I never said you were a mistake. She's scared of losing control over me, and she lashed out at you. Why didn't you call me? Why didn't you tell me? Because you asked for space. And I was trying to respect that, trying to prove the changes were real by not demanding you forgive me just because I wanted you to. Grace wraps her arms around herself. I thought you'd given up. Never. Grace, not for a single second. He takes off his jacket, drapes it over her shoulders. I've been giving you time, changing things at the company, fighting with my mother, trying to become the man you deserve. And if I'm not ready, if I can't trust you yet, then I keep trying, I keep changing, I keep proving that this isn't temporary or strategic, that I actually see what you've been trying to show me all along, which is that people matter more than profits, that dignity isn't determined by bank accounts, that my father was a hero, not a failure, that women like your mother are the backbone of this city. He steps closer. That you're the most important person in my world, and I've been an absolute fool. Grace feels tears on her cheeks. You hurt me. You hurt my mother. I know, and I'll spend the rest of my life trying to make up for it if you let me. The rest of your life is a long time. Not long enough. She looks at him, this man who's somehow both stranger and soulmate. Sees the changes, the softness around his eyes, the way he holds himself, less defensive, more open. The tears he didn't hide when her mother touched his face. I'm scared, she admits. Me too. What if we try this and you wake up one day and realize I'm not worth the trouble, not worth fighting your mother, not worth changing your whole life? Brandon reaches for her hands. She lets him take them. Grace, you are the trouble. The best kind. The kind that wakes you up and makes you question everything and forces you to be better. I don't want easy. I want you. Brandon, I love you. I've loved you since the moment you spilled coffee on me at that charity event and told me my tie was too expensive. I loved you when I was too arrogant to deserve you. I love you now that I'm trying to be worthy. And I'll love you tomorrow and every day after if you give me the chance. The words hang in the cold November air, visible as breath, solid as promises. I love you too, Grace whispers. I never stopped. Even when I wanted to hate you, I loved you. So what do? We try, one day at a time. I can do that. And if you mess up again, you call me on it. You don't let me slide. You hold me accountable. He squeezes her hands. Grace, I don't want the version of me that gets away with being cruel. I want the version that has to answer to you. She laughs, watery and weak. That's a lot of pressure. You can handle it. You're the strongest person I know. My mum said the same thing. Your mum is wise. They stand there, holding hands, breathing the same cold air. The city sparkles below them. Inside, the gala continues. But out here, it's just them. Two people who found each other, lost each other, and are choosing to find each other again. Can I kiss you? Brandon asks, voice rough. I've been dreaming about kissing you for 4 weeks. Only 4 weeks. Since the day we met, but especially these last 4 weeks. Grace smiles. Then you should probably do something about that. He pulls her close, one hand cupping her face, thumb brushing her cheek. His other hand settles on her waist, gentle but sure. Grace reaches up, her fingers curling into his shirt. If we do this, she says against his lips, we do it right. No hiding me from your friends, no being ashamed of where I come from. Never again, I promise. And you have to have dinner with my mum once a week. Learn to make her recipes. Done. And you have to keep changing. Keep being better. This can't be temporary. It won't be. Grace, I swear to you, this is permanent. She searches his eyes, looking for any hint of doubt or deception. Finds only love and hope and determination. Okay, she breathes. Kiss me then. He does. It's soft at first, tentative, like they're learning each other again. Then Grace presses closer and Brandon's hand tightens on her waist and the kiss deepens. It tastes like tears and promises and second chances, like coming home after being lost, like finding something you didn't know you'd been searching for your entire life. When they break apart, both breathless, foreheads pressed together, Brandon whispers, I'm never letting you go again. Good, because I'm done running. They kiss again, longer this time, the city lights blurring around them. Inside, someone starts playing music. A slow song drifts through the doors. Dance with me, Brandon says. Out here. Right here. Right now. Just us. He pulls her into his arms, and they sway on the terrace. No proper rhythm, just two people holding each other like they might disappear if they let go. Thank you, Brandon murmurs into her hair. For what? For giving me another chance. For seeing who I could be instead of just who I was. For not giving up on me when I'd given up on myself. Grace pulls back enough to see his face. Thank you for fighting. For changing, for honoring my mother and your father and everyone you used to overlook. I'm not done. This is just the beginning. I know, and I'll be here, watching, making sure you don't backslide. My personal conscience, your partner, in everything. They stay on the terrace until Sophia appears in the doorway, grinning like the cat who got the cream. You two done making up, because Eleanor wants photos with all the honorees, and Grace needs to be in them. Brandon and Grace exchange glances, matching smiles. We're done, Grace says. For now. For now, Brandon agrees. They walk back inside together, hands intertwined. Eleanor sees them and her face lights up brighter than all the chandeliers combined. She pulls them both into a hug, this unlikely trio bound by humiliation and forgiveness and love. The photographer snaps pictures, Eleanor in the center, Grace and Brandon on either side, all of them smiling like they've won something precious, and maybe they have, not money or status or power, but something better, something real. Flowers don't grow in perfect soil, Eleanor thinks, looking at her daughter and the man who's earning his place in their lives one day at a time. They grow where there's love. And now we have so much love that we're going to bloom forever. The morning after the gala, Brandon wakes with Grace's name on his lips and a plan forming in his mind. Not the kind of plan he'd execute in a boardroom with PowerPoint presentations and profit projections. This plan requires patience, creativity, and help from the one person who knows Grace better than anyone. He calls Eleanor at 8 a.m. "Mr. Mitchell," she answers, warmth in her voice. "Shouldn't you be sleeping after such a late night?" "I can't sleep. I need your help with something." "Oh? I want to propose to Grace the right way, with your blessing and your guidance." Silence on the other end. Then Eleanor laughs, the sound like wind chimes. "You want my blessing to marry my daughter. I want your blessing, your advice, your approval. I know I don't deserve it." "Stop. You've proven yourself. You're trying, you're changing. You honored me in front of hundreds of people. You have my blessing, Brandon." "You've had it since you cried when I touched your face." Brandon feels emotion well up. "Thank you, that means everything. But if you hurt her again, I know where to hide a body." He laughs. "Understood. So, how do I do this? How do I propose to Grace in a way that honors who she is? Not diamonds the size of small countries. I already bought the ring. It's vintage, Art Deco, small emerald. Her grandmother's style." "You researched her grandmother." "I pay attention now." Eleanor's voice softens. "Then you already know what to do. Grace doesn't want grand gestures. She wants genuine moments. Propose somewhere that matters, somewhere with meaning." Brandon thinks, "Where would you suggest?" "Where did you first meet?" "A charity fundraiser at the Natural History Museum. I spilled champagne," she laughed. "We started talking." Too public. "Where did you fall in love with her?" Brandon closes his eyes, remembers, "There was this Sunday morning. I'd stayed at her place, woke up before her. She was sleeping, hair everywhere, mouth open, drool on the pillow, and I thought, this is it. This is what I want every morning for the rest of my life." Then propose at her apartment. Simple, intimate, real. In Queens, in her home, where she's most herself. Where you saw her at her most vulnerable and loved her anyway. Brandon nods, though Eleanor can't see him. "You're brilliant. I'm a mother. It's part of the job." That afternoon, Brandon picks Grace up for their first official date since the reconciliation. She emerges from her building wearing jeans and a sweater, hair pulled back, no makeup, and she's the most beautiful thing he's ever seen. "Hi," she says, a hint of shyness creeping in. "Hi yourself." He kisses her cheek, breathes in the scent of her shampoo. "Ready? Where are we going?" "It's a surprise." She narrows her eyes. "I don't like surprises." "You'll like this one." He drives them to Brooklyn, to his father's old neighborhood, parks in front of the coffee shop that replaced the hardware store. "Why are we here?" Grace asks. "I want to show you where I came from. The real me, not the penthouse, not the office. The kid who helped his dad stock shelves and swept floors after school." They get out. Brandon points to the building. "That was Mitchell's Hardware, my dad's store. He opened it when I was 3, closed when I was 19 because he couldn't compete with the big chains." Grace takes his hand. "Show me." They walk the neighborhood. Brandon points out the apartment building where he grew up. 3rd floor, corner unit. The school he attended, now renovated but still standing. The park where his dad taught him to throw a baseball. "He was a good man," Brandon says, stopping at a bench. "Patient, kind, always had time for people. I remember this woman, Mrs. Rodriguez, came in once needing a new lock. Dad installed it for free because her husband had just left and she had no money. She cried, tried to pay him with a casserole. He took the casserole, told her the lock was on the house." Grace rests her head on his shoulder. "You remember that?" "I remember everything now. I spent so long trying to forget that I almost succeeded. But these memories, they're precious. They're who I'm supposed to be. You're getting there, because of you." They sit in comfortable silence, watching kids play basketball on the court where Brandon once played. The neighborhood has changed, gentrified, but the bones remain. The soul remains. "Thank you for bringing me here," Grace says. "Thank you for wanting to see it." 2 weeks later, Grace stands in Brandon's office, now a consultant for the Thomas Mitchell Foundation. Marcus had offered her a salary that made her gasp. Brandon had stayed out of the negotiation, letting Marcus handle it so Grace wouldn't feel pressured. "These schools need help," Grace says, spreading files across the conference table. "P.S. 117 got funds, but there are 30 more in the district alone." Brandon leans over, looking at her notes. "What's the total needed?" "For meaningful impact, about 2 million. Done." "Brandon, you can't just—" "I can. I am. That's why we created this foundation. Marcus, allocate 2 million for the Queen's School District. Let Grace identify which schools need it most." Marcus makes notes. "Any restrictions?" 1. No school can refuse the money because Grace teaches at a competing school. This isn't about favoritism. It's about kids. Grace stares at him. "You're really doing this. We're really doing this. This is your project. You know these schools, these communities. I'm just the checkbook. You're more than a checkbook. About time." He grins. "Took you long enough to notice." Victoria Mitchell appears in the doorway. Brandon's smile vanishes. "Mother, I don't recall you having an appointment." "I don't need appointments to see my son." Victoria's eyes flick to Grace, cold and assessing. "Miss Dawson. Still here, I see. Mrs. Mitchell." Grace stands, doesn't back down. "What can we do for you?" "I need to speak with Brandon." "Alone. Anything you say to me, you can say in front of Grace," Brandon states. Victoria's lips thin. "Very well. I'm here to make you an offer. End this relationship. Return to your senses. And I'll restore your trust fund. $5 million. More than enough to compensate for this philanthropic phase you're going through." Grace starts to speak. Brandon touches her arm, stops her. "Mother, I don't have a trust fund. You cut me off 3 weeks ago, remember? I'm offering to restore it, and I'm declining. I don't need your money, don't want it. I have everything I need right here." Victoria looks at Grace like she's furniture. "You're choosing her over your family legacy. I'm choosing myself over your manipulation. Grace is part of that, but this is bigger. I'm done pretending to be someone I'm not to please you. You'll regret this. The only thing I regret is not doing it sooner." Brandon stands, crosses to the door, opens it. "Leave, and don't come back unless you're ready to treat Grace with respect." Victoria's composure cracks. She's ruined you. No, she saved me. There's a difference. Victoria leaves, heels clicking sharp and angry. Brandon closes the door, leans against it. You okay? Grace asks. Better than okay. That was overdue by about 15 years. Marcus clears his throat. For what it's worth, that was impressive. Terrifying is more like it. Brandon returns to the table. But necessary. Grace, I'm sorry you had to see that. Don't apologize. That was your mother. Your choice. I'm just glad you chose us. Every time. I'll choose us. Every time. They return to work, planning school improvements. But Brandon's mind is elsewhere. On the ring hidden in his desk drawer, on Eleanor's advice, on the proposal he's planning for 2 weeks from now. Sunday dinner at Eleanor's apartment becomes a tradition. Brandon arrives with groceries, rolls up his sleeves, and attempts to help cook. Grace and Eleanor supervise with equal parts encouragement and mockery. No, you're cutting the onions too thick, Eleanor corrects. They're onions. How thick can they be? Thinner than that. Here. She guides his hands, patient and gentle. Small dice, releases more flavor. Brandon concentrates, tongue between his teeth. Grace takes a photo on her phone. Blackmail material, she explains at his look. I'm being domestic. This is adorable. This is hilarious. Sophia and Marcus arrive with wine. The apartment fills with laughter, music, the smell of home cooking. Brandon sets the table, messes it up, gets corrected, tries again. You're really bad at this, Sophia observes. I'm learning. At this rate, you'll be competent by 2030. I have patience. They eat. Brandon, Grace, Eleanor, Sophia, Marcus. An unlikely family forged through conflict and forgiveness. The food is simple but perfect. Roast chicken, potatoes, green beans. Eleanor's special recipe that Grace has never quite mastered. This is delicious, Brandon says. Eleanor, you have to teach me. Teach you, Brandon? You can't even boil water without help. So teach me to boil water first, then work up to this. Eleanor smiles, touches his hand. Okay, but it'll take time. I've got time. Lots of it. Grace watches them, her mother and her boyfriend, and feels something click into place. This is family, not perfect, not traditional, but real. After dinner, while the others clean up, Brandon and Eleanor step onto the small balcony. The city sparkles below. She's happy, Eleanor observes, happier than I've seen her in years. She makes me better. You make each other better. That's how it should be. Brandon reaches into his pocket, pulls out the small velvet box. I want to ask her, soon, and I want to do it here, in her home, where she feels safe. Eleanor opens the box, gasps at the emerald ring. It's perfect. You think she'll say yes? I think if she says no, I'll be shocked. But Brandon, one piece of advice. Anything. Don't make it too fancy. Don't hire musicians or rent helicopters. Just you, her, and the truth. That's all she needs. Just us. Just us. I'll make sure we're alone. You pick the day. Next Saturday. After dinner. I'll cook. Eleanor laughs. You'll cook? Are you trying to poison my daughter before proposing? I'll try. If I fail, we'll order pizza. That's more realistic. They shake hands, partners in this beautiful conspiracy. The week crawls by. Brandon rehearses his speech, discards it, rehearses again. He's closed billion-dollar deals without this much anxiety. But those were just business. This is Grace. This is forever. Thursday evening. Grace drags him to a school event. Her students are performing a play they wrote about community helpers. Brandon sits in a tiny chair, knees almost to his chest, watching 8-year-olds act out scenes about teachers, firefighters, and street vendors. When they mention Eleanor by name, Brandon's throat tightens. After, the kids swarm Grace. A little girl named Mia hugs Brandon's leg. "Are you Miss Dawson's boyfriend?" "I am." "Are you going to marry her?" Grace overhears, turns red. "Mia." "What?" "Tommy's dad said you had a rich boyfriend who was going to propose." "Tommy's dad knows everything." "Tommy's dad needs to mind his business," Grace mutters. Brandon crouches to Mia's level. "Can you keep a secret?" Mia nods, solemn. "I think your teacher is the most amazing person in the world. And yeah, maybe someday I'll ask her to marry me. But she'd have to say yes first." "She'll say yes. Everybody loves Miss Dawson." "I love her most," Mia giggles. Grace pulls Brandon away before he can corrupt any more children with his romantic nonsense. "You're shameless," she says, but she's smiling. "I'm honest. There's a difference." On the drive home, Grace is quiet. Brandon glances over. "What are you thinking?" "That Mia's right. You should propose." His heart stops. "Should I?" "Someday. When you're ready. When we're ready." "What if I said I'm ready now?" She looks at him, searching his face. "Are you getting there?" It's not a lie. He's 2 days away from ready. 2 days from changing everything. Saturday arrives. Brandon shows up at Eleanor's apartment at 4, armed with ingredients and a prayer. "Eleanor's running errands," Grace says, letting him in. "She said she'd be back around 7. Perfect. Just as planned." "Good. That gives me time to cook dinner without an audience." Grace raises an eyebrow. "You're really cooking?" "Attempting." "If I fail, we have pizza on speed dial." She laughs, settles on the couch with a book. "I'll supervise from here." Brandon enters the kitchen, pulls out Eleanor's instructions. Pasta primavera. Simple, but elegant. He can do this. The pasta he manages. The vegetables take longer. His knife skills still terrible despite Eleanor's lessons. The sauce is jarred, which feels like cheating, but Eleanor insisted store-bought is fine. By 6:30, dinner is ready. Not perfect, but edible. Brandon sets the table, lights candles, pours wine. Grace appears in the doorway. "This looks amazing. Don't praise it until you taste it." They eat. The pasta is overcooked, the vegetables under-seasoned. But Grace eats every bite. "It's good," she declares. "It's adequate. It's made with love. That makes it good." Brandon's heart pounds. This is it. The moment. The ring is in his pocket, burning a hole through his jeans. "Grace, there's something I want to ask you." She sets down her fork. "Okay." He stands, heart pounding. This woman has seen him at his worst and his best, has forgiven him when he didn't deserve it, has challenged him to be better every single day. "When I met you, I was lost, successful but empty, rich but poor in everything that matters. I looked at people and saw numbers, not humans. I looked at my past and felt shame instead of pride." Grace's eyes glisten. "You changed that. You showed me that wealth isn't in bank accounts, that success is measured in lives touched, not profits earned, that my father was a hero, not a failure, that your mother deserves respect, not contempt, that I could be better if I just tried." He kneels, pulls out the box. Grace gasps. "Grace Elizabeth Dawson, you are the best thing that ever happened to me. You're smart, kind, fierce, and you don't let me get away with anything. You make me laugh. You make me think. You make me want to be the man my father would recognize." He opens the box. The emerald glints in the candlelight. "Will you marry me? Will you let me spend the rest of my life trying to deserve you? Will you build a family with me, raise kids with me, grow old with me? Will you be my partner in everything?" Grace is crying, nodding, laughing. "Yes, yes, yes, 1,000 times yes." Brandon slides the ring onto her finger. It fits. She pulls him up, kisses him hard, tears on both their faces. "I love you," she whispers against his mouth. "I love you more." Impossible. Probable. They kiss again, deeper, sweeter, the dinner forgotten, the city forgotten. Just two people choosing each other, choosing forever. The door opens. Eleanor walks in, stops, sees them. "Oh, did I interrupt?" "Perfect timing," Brandon says. "Grace said yes." Eleanor shrieks, runs over, hugs them both. "Let me see the ring." Grace holds out her hand. The emerald catches the light. "It's beautiful, it's perfect. You're both perfect." Eleanor is crying, laughing, hugging them again. "My babies are getting married." "I'm not your baby," Brandon protests. "You are now, both my babies." Sophia and Marcus appear in the doorway, champagne in hand. "Congratulations," Sophia squeals. Brandon looks at Grace. "Did everyone know?" "Looks like it. And you didn't suspect." "I suspected, I hoped, I waited." Eleanor pops the champagne. They toast to love, to second chances, to families chosen and found. Brandon holds Grace close, the ring on her finger catching light, and thinks about his father, wonders if Thomas Mitchell is watching from somewhere, hopes he's proud. He's no longer running from his past, he's building a future. With Grace, with Eleanor, with this unlikely family that forgave him when he didn't deserve it, and for the first time in 15 years, Brandon Mitchell feels at peace. Grace wants a small wedding. Brandon wants whatever makes her happy. Eleanor wants everyone to stop crying long enough to actually plan something. They sit in Eleanor's living room, 2 weeks after the engagement, surrounded by bridal magazines that Grace refuses to open. "I don't need a big dress," Grace insists, "or a fancy venue, or 200 guests I've never met." "What do you need?" Brandon asks. "You, Mom, Sophia, and Marcus, maybe the kids from school, that's it." "That's perfect." Sophia looks up from her phone. "You're getting married in 2 months and you have 0 plans. I'm having heart palpitations." "We'll figure it out," Grace says. "Where? When? What are you wearing? What's the theme?" "Sophia, breathe." Eleanor pats her hand. "They don't need a theme. They need love and witnesses. Everything else is decoration." Brandon loves Eleanor more with each passing day. "I do have one request," he says. "I'd like to get married on the corner of 5th Avenue, where your mum's flower cart is." Grace stares. "Seriously?" "That's where everything changed. Where I met Eleanor, where I showed who I really was, where this whole journey started. It feels right." Eleanor tears up. "Brandon, that's beautiful." "It's also illegal," Sophia points out. "You can't just set up a wedding on a street corner." "I can get permits, donations to the right departments. We'll close the block for an hour." "You're going to shut down 5th Avenue for a wedding?" Grace laughs. "That's the most billionaire thing you've ever said. I'm using my powers for good. There's a difference." Marcus, who's been quiet, speaks up. "I'll handle the permits. And Brandon, what about your mother?" The room falls silent. "What about her?" Brandon asks. "Are you inviting her?" Brandon looks at Grace. She takes his hand. "It's your decision. She was cruel to you. To Eleanor. She tried to break us up. She's still your mother. Being a mother takes more than biology. Eleanor taught me that." He squeezes Grace's hand. "I'll send an invitation. If she comes, she comes. If not, we're still getting married." Eleanor stands, hugs him. "Your father would be so proud of the man you've become." Brandon holds her, this woman who gave him a second chance when she had every right to slam the door in his face. The next 2 months blur by. Grace continues teaching. Brandon continues transforming the company, and Eleanor continues selling flowers on the corner that will soon host a wedding. Mr. Thompson has opinions about everything. "You need white flowers," he tells Brandon one afternoon. "Roses, lilies, maybe some orchids." I was thinking wildflowers. More natural. Wildflowers for a wedding on Fifth Avenue. Boy, you've lost your mind. I've found it, actually. Big difference. Eleanor laughs from her cart. He's right, Thompson. Wildflowers are perfect. This isn't a society wedding. It's a celebration of two people who found each other despite themselves. Brandon helps her arrange bouquets. His hand's more skilled now after weeks of practice. He's not great, but he's trying, always trying. A woman in an expensive coat stops, looks at the flowers, looks at Brandon. Aren't you Brandon Mitchell, the CEO? I am. What are you doing selling flowers? Learning, helping, being part of something that matters. The woman buys 3 bouquets, adds a $50 tip, walks away shaking her head. You're going to give her something to talk about at her next country club meeting, Eleanor observes. Good. Maybe more people will start questioning what actually matters. 3 days before the wedding, Victoria Mitchell's RSVP arrives. A single word, attending. Brandon stares at the card. Grace reads over his shoulder. How do you feel? She asks. Surprised, nervous, hopeful, maybe. You want her there? I want her to see that I'm happy, that I chose right, that walking away from her control was the best decision I ever made. And if she causes a scene, then Sophia will handle her. She's been dying for the opportunity. Grace laughs. Sophia has indeed been preparing herself for Victoria, rehearsing takedowns in the mirror. The day before the wedding, Brandon takes Eleanor to lunch, just the two of them. I have something for you, he says after they order. Brandon, you've given me enough. Not even close. He pulls out an envelope. Open it. Inside, a deed. Eleanor reads, confusion crossing her face. I don't understand. This is for a shop space. 2 blocks from your corner. Bigger. Climate controlled. Real plumbing. You can expand your business, hire help, work indoors when the weather's bad. Brandon, I can't accept this. It's not charity. It's an investment. I'm partnering with you. Mitchell and Dawson Flowers. You run it. I fund it. We split profits. Fair. Eleanor's eyes fill. Why would you do this? Because you deserve it. Because you've worked outside in pain for 35 years, and that's long enough. Because I want my future mother-in-law comfortable and successful. And because your flower arrangements are actually really good, and more people should see them. She reaches across the table, takes his hand. You're a good man, Brandon Mitchell. I'm trying to be. You and Grace are teaching me. Thomas would have liked you. My dad. Both Thomases. Yours and Grace's father. Both good men who worked hard and loved deeply. You're honoring them by becoming like them. Brandon can't speak, just holds Eleanor's hand and lets the tears come. The wedding day arrives with perfect October weather, crisp, clear, golden light painting the city. Grace wakes in her childhood bedroom, Eleanor bringing her coffee. How did you sleep? Eleanor asks. 3 hours. You? About the same. I kept thinking about your father, how much he would have loved today. Grace pulls her mother onto the bed. They sit together, coffee warming their hands. Tell me about him, about his wedding day. Eleanor smiles. Distant. We got married in a small church in Queens. I wore my mother's dress, altered to fit. He wore a borrowed suit. We had 30 guests and a reception in my aunt's backyard. It rained halfway through. Everyone got soaked, and it was perfect. Perfect because of the rain. Perfect because we were together. That's all that mattered. Eleanor kisses Grace's forehead. Today will be perfect too. Not because of the flowers or the location or the fancy permits Brandon pulled, because you and Brandon choose each other. That's what makes it perfect. Sophia bursts in with makeup, hair supplies, and the dress Grace bought off the rack at a vintage shop. Simple, cream-colored, tea-length, perfect for a street corner wedding. "We have 2 hours," Sophia announces. "Let's make you beautiful." "I'm already beautiful," Grace protests. "More beautiful, it's possible. Trust me." Brandon stands on the corner of Fifth Avenue with Marcus, trying not to panic. The permits came through. The block is closed. White chairs line the sidewalk. Wildflowers in simple vases mark the aisle. Eleanor's cart, decorated with ribbons and more flowers, serves as the altar backdrop. "You good?" Marcus asks. Terrified. That's normal. What if she changes her mind? She won't. What if I mess up my vows? You practice them 50 times. You'll be fine. What if... Brandon... Marcus grabs his shoulders. She loves you. You love her. That's all that matters. Everything else is just details. Brandon nods, breathes. You're right. I'm always right. Haven't you learned that by now? Guests arrive. Grace's students and their families. Mr. Thompson in his best suit. Teachers from PS 117. Some board members from Mitchell & Co. who've watched Brandon's transformation. And Victoria Mitchell, arriving in a town car, wearing a dress that probably costs more than Eleanor's monthly rent. Brandon watches his mother approach. She looks older, tired, uncertain. Mother. Brandon. She glances around. This is unusual. This is us, real, honest. I see. Victoria looks like she wants to say more, but can't find the words. Finally, you look happy. I am. Then I'm glad. It's not an apology, not acceptance, but it's something, a crack in the wall. Brandon takes it. Thank you for coming. Victoria nods, finds her seat. Sophia watches her like a hawk, ready to pounce if needed. The violinist starts playing. Everyone stands. And there's Grace. She walks down the aisle alone, head high, smile bright. No father to give her away, because she's not property to be transferred. She's a woman choosing her future. Brandon's breath catches. She's stunning. The dress, the flowers in her hair, the joy on her face. But more than that, she's Grace. His Grace. Strong, kind, challenging, perfect. She reaches him, takes his hands. Hi, she whispers. Hi yourself. The officiant, a friend of Eleanor's, begins. We're gathered here on this street corner, where flowers are sold and lives intersect, to witness Brandon and Grace commit to each other. Brandon barely hears the opening words. He's lost in Grace's eyes, in the promise of forever reflected there. Brandon has chosen to speak first, the officiant says. Brandon clears his throat. No notes, just heart. Grace, 6 months ago, I was lost. Rich but empty. Successful but broken. I measured worth in dollars and looked at people as transactions, and then I met you, and you wrecked me in the best possible way. Grace smiles through tears. You showed me that kindness isn't weakness, that my father was a hero, not a failure, that your mother deserves respect, not contempt. You challenged me to be better, and when I failed, you gave me another chance, and another, until I finally figured out who I was supposed to be all along. He squeezes her hands. I promise to keep changing, to keep learning, to honor where we came from while building where we're going. I promise to have dinner with your mom every Sunday and try not to burn the food. I promise to support your work, your dreams, your fierce protection of the people you love. And I promise to love you, Grace Dawson, every single day for the rest of my life, even when you're mad at me, especially then. Laughter from the guests. Grace wipes her eyes. Your turn, Brandon says. Grace takes a shaky breath. I didn't prepare anything fancy because I'm not good with fancy, so I'm just going to tell the truth. That's all I need. Brandon, You scared me at first. All that money, all that power, all that arrogance. I thought you were everything I didn't want, but then you let me see the real you. The scared boy who lost his father, the man trying so hard to prove he wasn't weak. The human under all that armor. She touches his face. You hurt me. You hurt my mom. And then you did the hardest thing anyone can do. You changed. Really changed. Not with words, but with actions. You honored your father. You respected my mother. You built something good with your wealth instead of just hoarding it. I had a good teacher. We taught each other. That's what partners do. Grace smiles. I promise to love you on your good days and your bad days. When you're confident and when you're scared, when you're the brilliant CEO and when you're burning dinner, I promise to keep you honest, keep you humble, and keep you laughing. And I promise to build a life with you that honors both our pasts and creates a beautiful future. Together, Brandon adds, together. The officiant beams. The rings. Marcus produces them. Simple gold bands, inscribed inside with the date and their initials. They exchange rings. Brandon's hands shake. Grace steadies them. By the power vested in me by the state of New York, I now pronounce you husband and wife. Brandon, you may kiss your bride. Brandon pulls Grace close, kisses her as Fifth Avenue applauds. It's soft and sweet and perfect. When they break apart, both are crying. I love you, Grace whispers. I love you more. Still impossible, still probable. They walk back down the aisle as Mr. and Mrs. Mitchell. Grace pauses at Eleanor's cart, hugs her mother hard. Thank you for everything, Grace says. Thank you for being brave enough to love him. Eleanor kisses both their cheeks. Now go celebrate. The reception is at a nearby restaurant Brandon rented out. Nothing too fancy, just good food and better company. Speeches happen. Marcus tells embarrassing stories about Brandon's early days at the company. Sophia roasts them both without mercy, but ends with a toast that makes everyone cry. Eleanor speaks about watching Grace grow, about Pedro's memory, about gaining a son. Victoria approaches Brandon and Grace at the end of the night. May I speak with you both? Grace tenses. Brandon nods. Victoria looks uncomfortable, like the words cost her. I was wrong. About you, Grace. About this relationship. About what matters. Grace says nothing, waiting. I spent so long running from my past that I forgot it's part of who I am. You reminded Brandon of that, helped him embrace it, and watching him today, seeing how happy he is. Victoria's voice cracks. I realized I've been miserable trying to be someone I'm not. Mrs. Mitchell. Grace starts. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I want you to know that I see now why he loves you, and I'm going to try to be better. Not for you. For me. Brandon stands. That's all I ever wanted, Mum. For you to be happy as yourself, not as who you think you should be. Victoria nods. Leaves before emotion overwhelms her. It's not reconciliation, but it's a start. Grace leans against Brandon. Your family is complicated. Our family is complicated, but that's okay. Complicated can still be good. They dance, slow, swaying, foreheads pressed together. Around them, their chosen family celebrates. Eleanor dances with Mr. Thompson. Sophia and Marcus finally admit they're dating. Grace's students run around throwing flower petals. What are you thinking? Grace asks. That this is the happiest day of my life. Better than closing your first billion-dollar deal. Not even close to comparable. Money is just money. This, he pulls her closer, this is everything. They dance until the restaurant kicks them out. Stand on the sidewalk, Grace's head on Brandon's shoulder, watching the city they both love in different ways. Ready to go home? Brandon asks. Where's home? Wherever you are, Grace laughs. That was so cheesy. I'm a married man now. I'm allowed to be cheesy. They climb into the car Marcus arranged, drive through Manhattan, through the bridge, into Queens. To the brownstone Brandon bought them in Grace's neighborhood. Close enough to Eleanor, far enough for independence. Perfect compromise. Inside, Grace kicks off her shoes. Brandon loosens his tie. "We did it," she says. "We did. We're married. Very married. Forever married." Brandon pulls her close, kisses her deeply. Forever sounds perfect. They stand in their home, in their neighborhood, in their life. Two people from different worlds who built a bridge between them and called it love. And outside, the city continues. Eleanor closes her cart and, satisfied, Mr. Thompson locks his newsstand. Flowers bloom where there's love, just like Eleanor always said. And somewhere, two fathers watch from wherever fathers go, proud of the children they raised and the people those children became. Brandon and Grace Mitchell, together, finally, forever. 18 months after the wedding, Grace Mitchell wakes to sunlight streaming through bedroom windows and her husband's arm draped across her waist. The brownstone in Brooklyn, a compromise between his Manhattan and her Queens, has become home in ways neither of them expected. Brandon stirs, kisses her shoulder. "Morning! Morning yourself! You stayed in bed. You're always up by 6. "I was tired." Grace rolls over, faces him. "We were up late working on the foundation reports. We were up late because you insisted on reading every single application. 40 schools need help, Brandon. I can't just pick at random." He brushes hair from her face. "That's why I love you. You care about every single kid. Someone has to." They lie there, comfortable silence, before reality intrudes. Brandon's phone buzzes. Grace's follows. The world outside their bedroom demands attention. "Breakfast?" Brandon offers. "I'll make it. You burned the eggs last time." "I was distracted. You were texting Marcus about quarterly reports. At 7 a.m. on a Sunday. Old habits die hard." Grace kisses him, climbs out of bed. "New habits die harder. Go shower. I'll have coffee ready." Downstairs, the kitchen smells like home. Grace has learned to cook more elaborate meals. Brandon has learned to not destroy simple ones. Together, they've created a rhythm that works. She makes scrambled eggs, toast, fruit. Brandon appears hair damp, tie not yet straightened. "Let me." Grace fixes his tie, the gesture so familiar now, it's muscle memory. "Better." "What would I do without you? Starve and wear wrinkled clothes." They eat at the small kitchen table, reading the news on their tablets, feet tangled under the table, domestic, normal, perfect. "Eleanor's shop opens next week," Brandon says. "The grand opening." "I know. She's been freaking out, worried nobody will come. Half of Manhattan has RSVPs. She's going to be overwhelmed." Grace smiles. Mitchell and Dawson Flowers has transformed from concept to reality. The shop is beautiful, climate-controlled, organized, with a back room for arrangements and a front space for customers. Eleanor hired 2 assistants, both former street vendors who needed a break. The cart on Fifth Avenue remains, run by Maria, the young woman Eleanor mentored. "Your mum's come a long way," Brandon observes. "So have you." "We all have." Grace's phone rings. Sophia. "Hey, what's up?" "Marcus proposed." Sophia shrieks through the phone. Grace jumps up. "What? When? How?" "Last night, at the restaurant where we had our first date. He did this whole speech about how I keep him honest and make him laugh, and he wants to spend forever arguing with me." "That's so Marcus." "I know. And the ring is perfect. Not huge, just right." "Grace, I'm getting married." "I'm so happy for you. We need to celebrate. Brunch, today." "Yes, bring your husband. We'll go to that place in Park Slope." They hang up. Brandon raises an eyebrow. Marcus proposed. About time. Sophia's been waiting for months. He wanted to be sure. He's been sure since they met. He's just slow, Brandon laughs. Takes one to know one. I waited 6 months to tell you I loved you. And look how that turned out. Perfectly. Brunch is chaos in the best way. Sophia shows off her ring, talks a mile a minute about wedding plans. Marcus looks dazed but happy. We're thinking small, Sophia says, like yours, intimate. Real. You should do it in the Bronx, Grace suggests, where you grew up. Sophia's eyes light up. At the community center. Grace, that's perfect. They spend 2 hours planning a wedding that hasn't even been scheduled yet. Brandon and Marcus escape to discuss foundation business, giving the women space to dream. Grace looks tired, Marcus observes. She okay? She's been exhausted lately, working too hard, probably. Make sure she rests. Foundation work can consume you if you're not careful. I know. I'm trying. Brandon sips his coffee, but she loves it. Seeing schools improve, kids getting resources. It's her purpose. Just like it's become yours. Brandon nods. The Thomas Mitchell Foundation now funds 60 schools, provides small business loans to 200 entrepreneurs, and offers medical assistance to service workers across New York. It's grown beyond anything he imagined. And Grace runs it with fierce dedication. By the way, Marcus says, the board approved the expansion. We're going into New Jersey next quarter. Grace will be thrilled. She's building something incredible. You both are. That evening, Grace feels nauseous. She blames it on brunch, on too much coffee, on exhaustion. But when it happens again the next morning, and the morning after that, she starts to suspect. She buys a test on her lunch break, hides it in her purse, waits until Brandon leaves for a late meeting. In their bathroom, hands shaking, she takes the test. 3 minutes feel like 3 years. 2 pink lines appear. Grace stares, then stares some more, then sits on the bathroom floor and cries. Happy tears, scared tears, overwhelmed tears. She's pregnant. They've talked about kids. Someday, eventually, when the foundation is stable, when they've been married a bit longer, when they're ready. But someday is now. Grace calls her mother. Mom, baby, what's wrong? You sound upset. I'm pregnant. Silence. Then Eleanor screams, You're pregnant! Oh my God, I'm going to be a grandmother. I haven't told Brandon yet. When did you find out? 5 minutes ago. Grace Elizabeth Mitchell, you called me before your husband. I needed my mom first. Eleanor's voice softens. How do you feel? Terrified, happy, overwhelmed, all of it. That's normal. When I found out I was pregnant with you, I cried for an hour. Your father thought something was wrong. What if I'm not ready? Nobody's ready. You just figure it out as you go. Eleanor pauses. But Grace, you're going to be an amazing mother. You're kind, patient, loving, and Brandon will be a wonderful father. You think? I know. Now go tell your husband before I do. Grace laughs through tears. I love you, Mom. I love you too, baby. Now go. Brandon comes home at 9, finds Grace curled on the couch, still in her work clothes. Hey, sorry I'm late. The meeting ran over. He kisses the top of her head. You okay? You look pale. I'm fine. Just tired. You've been tired a lot lately. Maybe you should see a doctor. I don't need a doctor. Grace, I need you to sit down. Brandon's expression shifts. Concern. Fear. He sits. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong. Nothing's wrong at all. Grace takes his hand, places it on her stomach. I'm pregnant. Brandon freezes, looks at her face, her stomach, her face again. You're what? Pregnant. 10 weeks, I think. I took a test this afternoon. 10 weeks? I thought I was just stressed, working too much. But then I kept feeling sick in the mornings, and I realized... Brandon doesn't let her finish. He pulls her into his arms, holds her so tight she can barely breathe. When he pulls back, his eyes are wet. We're having a baby. We're having a baby. Grace, we're having a baby. He kisses her, deep and long and full of promise. Then he kisses her stomach, then her face again. When? How? I mean, I know how, but when? Probably after the gala. That night we got home late and I remember. Brandon grins. Best night ever. It's about to get better. They sit on the couch, Brandon's hand on her stomach, both of them processing. A baby, their baby, a whole new person made of them. I'm scared, Grace admits. Me too. What if I'm a terrible mother? Impossible. You're amazing with kids. Your students adore you. That's different. Those kids go home at 3:30. And this one will be ours forever, which is perfect. Grace leans against him. Your dad would have been a great-grandfather. He would have spoiled this kid rotten. Brandon's voice catches. I wish he could meet them. He will. In the stories we tell, in the values we teach, he'll be part of them. Thomas or Thomasina Mitchell. If it's a girl, maybe Eleanor after my mom. Eleanor Mitchell. I like it. And if it's a boy, Thomas. Definitely Thomas. They sit there, planning a future for a person who doesn't exist yet but already has their whole hearts. They tell Eleanor the next day. She cries, hugs them both, starts knitting within the hour. I'm making a blanket, she announces, and booties, and maybe a sweater. Mom, the baby won't be here for 7 months. I need time to prepare. They tell Marcus and Sophia the following week at Sunday dinner. Sophia shrieks again. Marcus looks thoughtful. Godparents, he asks. Who else? Brandon responds. I'm going to be the fun godmother, Sophia declares, the one who teaches them to swear and sneak candy. You will not, Grace protests. Watch me. They tell the foundation staff at the next meeting. Everyone applauds. Someone brings champagne, then remembers Grace can't drink, and brings sparkling cider instead. Will you keep working? One of the coordinators asks. As long as I can. Then maternity leave, then back when I'm ready. The foundation will be here, Brandon adds. Grace's health and our baby come first. Later, in the car, Grace squeezes his hand. Thank you. For what? For not assuming I'd quit, for supporting me. Grace, the work you do matters. I'd never ask you to stop. We'll figure out the balance. Together. Always together. 6 months later, Grace is 8 months pregnant and glowing. Her belly is huge, her back aches, and she's never been happier. They're at Eleanor's shop for a Saturday afternoon. Mitchell and Dawson Flowers is thriving. Eleanor's arthritis is better thanks to new treatment Brandon's insurance covers. She's hired 3 more people. The shop is always full. Grace sits in a chair, feet up, watching Brandon help arrange bouquets. He's gotten good at it. Not Eleanor-level good, but competent. He listens to instructions, takes his time, focuses. That one's crooked, Eleanor corrects, pointing at a rose. Brandon adjusts it. Better? Better. You're learning. I have a good teacher. Grace watches them, her mother and her husband, working together like it's the most natural thing in the world. Thinks about how 18 months ago, Brandon couldn't look at Eleanor without shame. Now he calls her for advice, visits the shop weekly, treats her like the mother he wishes he'd had. Victoria has come around too, bit by bit. She sent a gift when they announced the pregnancy. An antique rocking chair that belonged to Brandon's grandmother included a note, "For my grandchild, I want to be part of their life if you'll let me." They're letting her, with boundaries, with watchful eyes, but letting her. How are you feeling? Eleanor asks Grace, bringing her tea. Like I'm carrying a bowling ball that kicks. Not long now. 3 weeks. If baby Mitchell cooperates, they'll come when they're ready. Your father was 2 weeks late. Almost drove me insane. Brandon comes over, kneels beside Grace's chair. You okay? Need anything? I'm good. Just watching you work. It's therapeutic. I understand why your mom does this. Because it's beautiful, Eleanor says. Because flowers are hope made visible. Because every arrangement tells someone they matter. Grace feels tears well up. Pregnancy hormones make her cry at everything. But this is different. This is gratitude. For this family they've built. For this life they've created. For this baby who'll grow up knowing they're loved from every direction. 2 weeks later, at 3 a.m., Grace shakes Brandon awake. It's time, he bolts upright. Time, now. Are you sure? My water broke. I'm sure. Chaos, beautiful chaos. They grab the hospital bag they packed weeks ago, call Eleanor, call Sophia and Marcus, race to the hospital through empty New York streets. 12 hours later, Thomas Pedro Mitchell enters the world, 7 pounds and 3 ounces. Perfect. Brandon holds his son for the first time and cries. Grace watches, exhausted and exhilarated, as her husband becomes a father. Hi, buddy, Brandon whispers. I'm your dad. I'm going to mess up a lot, but I promise I'll love you every single day. Thomas yawns. Grace laughs. He's not impressed with your speech. He will be eventually. Eleanor arrives, meets her grandson, cries enough for everyone. Sophia and Marcus come with balloons and terrible jokes. The room fills with love. Victoria shows up that evening, hesitant. Grace nods permission. Brandon's mother approaches the bassinet, looks at Thomas, and something in her face softens. He's beautiful, she whispers. He is, Brandon agrees. He looks like you, when you were born. Does he? Same nose, same chin. Victoria touches Thomas's tiny hand with one finger. I'm sorry I wasn't a better mother to you, Brandon. I want to be a better grandmother to him. You can be, if you try. I'll try. I promise I'll try. It's not perfect, but it's a start. 1 week later, they bring Thomas home. Grace sits in the nursery, nursing him, Brandon dozing in the chair beside them. The room is painted soft yellow, filled with gifts and flowers and so much love it almost hurts. We did it, Grace murmurs. Brandon opens one eye. Did what? Built this. A life. A family. A future. We did. Your dad would be proud. So would yours. Thomas finishes eating, falls asleep in Grace's arms. She looks at her son, this tiny, perfect human, and thinks about everything that led to this moment. The coffee spill, the humiliation, the pain and separation and growth, the choice to forgive, the courage to change. What are you thinking? Brandon asks. That my mom was right. Flowers don't grow in perfect soil. They grow where there's love. We have a lot of love here. We do. We really do. Brandon comes over, wraps his arms around both of them. His wife. His son, his family. Outside, the city continues. Eleanor closes the shop, satisfied with another good day. Sophia and Marcus plan their wedding. Mr. Thompson locks his newsstand, waves to Eleanor, walks home thinking about the community he's watched transform. And on the corner of Fifth Avenue, a young woman named Maria sells flowers to people who need beauty in their lives. Some buy them, some don't. But Maria greets everyone with a smile, just like Eleanor taught her, because that's what flowers are. Hope made visible, love made tangible. Proof that beauty can grow anywhere, as long as someone cares enough to nurture it. And in a brownstone in Brooklyn, Brandon Mitchell, former arrogant CEO, reformed billionaire, devoted husband, brand new father, looks at his sleeping son, and feels something he never felt in all his years of success. Peace. True peace. The kind that comes from knowing you're exactly where you're supposed to be, with exactly who you're supposed to be with, doing exactly what matters. "I love you," he whispers to Grace. "I love you more," she whispers back. Still impossible, still probable. Thomas sighs in his sleep, and somewhere two fathers, one who sold hardware in Brooklyn, one who dreamed bigger dreams for his daughter, smile from wherever fathers go. The circle is complete. The story is told. And the Mitchell family, built on forgiveness and transformation and love strong enough to change everything, has just begun. Flowers grow where there's love, and this family, they have enough love to bloom forever. I hope you enjoyed today's story. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss more stories like this. Leave a like and comment below what you thought of the story. See you in the next video.